and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Pork and Bean Show, starring two of the world's foremost ascended disasters, Fort Cunningham, and the world's handsomest man, Frank Oliver Bean. Sit back, relax, and stay a while, and access the far recesses of your imagination, as far as the universe that you can imagine beyond. And let us introduce you to the world of the Sasquatch people, and their message of love, their message of hope, and their message of connection.
So tell us about indigo again, what you were telling us about indigo and the glyphs.
Oh, see, I told you you're going to ask her to do. She's going to forget it all.
No, I'm like an elephant. I don't ever forget to get, but other than that, indigo, of course, you know, I'm back where I was. I've come full circle and am back in had for many years. And of course, you know, the Harry kids and everybody, they're all still here. They were here before I came here, and I'm sure they'll be here long after I'm gone too. But indigo has been doing some of the things with the glyphs that he's always done with me. And I'd said I put a picture in the Pork and Beans group of the progression of a recent glyph that he had done where he had changed it. And of course, there were different meanings and things. And he also did that several years ago. And it was about over a month's time that he did very small changes in it. They were very subtle. And I always tell people, if you begin working with glyphs, take pictures, document your glyphs, and keep up with them, because they go in and change them. And a lot of times that's to see how closely we're watching, or are we picking up on the subtleties of this change, or is the change? And sometimes they're that. But with indigo, and the one he did several years ago, I mean, the changes from day to day were so subtle. And of course, I documented them. And so I could go back and look at them. But they were a progression of triangles, which are three-sided. 3 is a very important number. And I read one article where it talked about that you can build the world with triangles. And so you have these 3 sides that have many, many different meanings, and there are different kinds of triangles too, of course. And so you look into that. Symbols are very important. They teach us a lot of different things. And the one thing that I found through the years with glyphs, because I've been doing this a long time, is there are similarities in different symbols within glyphs. But if you're working one-on-one with them, then that symbol may have a little bit different meaning for you than it would someone else who was working in a an area. So that's the thing with glyphs. It's communication. They are symbols. But even writing, if we look at it and take it apart with the alphabet, each alphabet, we call them letters, but they're symbols. And there are symbols that people look at from the alphabet that are in a lot of other cultures too, and a lot of other writings. And there's, I don't know how many different types of writing there would be. You can go back to the ancient Sanskrit, and you know, you've got runes, you've got all of these. They are symbols and they teach us something, but you need to be open and to that. Sometimes it's very evident when you walk up on a glyph as to the meaning of that glyph, and whether it's for you or whether it's just a general thing. So it's all about that personal relationship. What's going on in your life right now? Because I can guarantee you they know what's going on in your life. And answers to that can be within those glyphs, you know. And I'm not saying that it always has to be some kind of big message. Sometimes it's just, hey, hello, I see what's going on with you, or acknowledging something that maybe makes you happy. And so it's just communication, the same as, you know, all other kinds. And that's been the thing with Indigo, is in his communication that started so long ago. But you can't just say they're doing that, because they have so many other kinds of communication, which our world, our universe, has all different kinds of communication: energetic, thought, visual. There's just all kinds of communication, and it doesn't have to be vocal. And that's where we get caught up, is with communication has to be something vocal. But, you know, in effect, all those other things are communication too.
I think energy is the real communication. You know,
Oh, yeah.
you understand
Yeah.
it, you can lie with words and stuff, but
Oh, yeah.
energy, if you
Yeah.
can read it, you can't really lie with it if you understand it.
Oh,
I'm really happy, you know, like what you said about documenting the glyphs and whatever, because I'm sure that you would agree with me. Like because I always document them, and I'll go back 5 or 10 years and look at a picture and say, oh yeah,
yeah.
that's what they meant. And they already knew I was going to know what it meant, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
so, and yeah, because sometimes I'm getting that just getting that fluttery
Mm-hmm.
butterfly, because yeah, because the glyphs are so personal, like you said, right?
Yeah.
They're so personal, and you really have to pay attention to them, because they do constantly change them, and they are giving you messages about your life. Like, for instance, Sue and I, they've been constantly leaving us these house glyphs or whatever that symbolize our relationship. Sometimes
Yep.
one of the walls is not quite connected, or there's something askew, and they're telling us you still have work to do.
Yeah.
And recently I've been having a lot of communication with Little Bud, very similar to what you have with Indigo with the glyphs. And he's, you know, we got a really great communication going on right now, and he's changing it like almost every second day or something.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and for people who are or can go to an area pretty regular, that's going to help the person too to begin to understand what's going on and to know your area. And I know you and I and everybody here today has been told, oh, that just happened. How do you know somebody didn't come in and do that, and the wind did it, or the rain did it, or some animal stepped on it, or, you know, any kind of other thing? But
Oh,
for
you're reading
surety,
tea leaves.
yes, you know, and for surety, you can't say 100% if you don't see them do it, but it doesn't even matter that you can't say to someone 100% about it, because it's something that you're doing. And yes, the messages we get too are personal, but they also teach us in that personal way in how we're supposed to react with other people and how we're supposed to live and relate to everything that goes on. So if we're aware, and if we are in an area that we frequent a lot or can, it just helps so much more to know your area, know what goes on there, pay attention to what's going on with your life. Have you asked a question about your life? Maybe you were just thinking about something going to happen or something that did happen, and you need some kind of verification or something. They'll give it to you. It's just that simple. If you're open to it, they'll help you. They really will. And you know, through my life, oh my gosh, they've helped me so much with that simplicity of that.
Yeah. But, you know, Arla, and you and I both know that, you know, like when you see a glyph change right before your eyes, which we've both seen,
Yes.
that probably eliminates human involvement. But, you know, I mean, you know, we
Yes.
know what's going on because the
Yeah.
messages are so consistent, right? I mean,
Yes.
there's no person that could be that intimately tied into it to,
No.
you know, like
Yeah.
it's
And that's
impossible.
like what we were in, was it Washington or Oregon, when we had climbed up that mountain and we saw the glyph on the way up the trail, and we just went a little ways and the trail wasn't windy or anything. Well, we turned around and come back down, and that glyph had already changed by
Right.
the time we got back. And I mean, you know,
That-
in the glyph, when I was in Washington, you and Sue were sitting in front of me. I had my back to where my backpack was laying on the ground right behind me. You and Sue were looking at me. I was looking at you guys, and we were talking. And I turned around, and there was the family friendship glyph right there on top of my backpack.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and you say, well, how did that happen? It
Well, I remember
happens
that.
a
Yeah.
lot,
Yeah.
you know, so
Happened to Sue and I camping. We were
Yeah.
watching a raven across the water that actually gifted us a raven feather shortly after that. And as we were watching the raven, suddenly we looked down. We had just put our blankets down on the sand, right? Just put them down there, and all of a sudden we see a friendship Walcomex partially placed on my blanket. Well, obviously it just had to have been placed there, right? You know, there's no other explanation. You know, stuff like that. But yeah, just amazing.
it makes me so excited when I see people who are beginning to get it, who are beginning to open up And except, you know, somebody will come to me and they'll say, well, man, I've been seeing these and they're on this path I walk, or they're outside my house, or, you know, whatever. And so, you know, you start this discussion. Okay, what do you think? You know, and I never tell people, oh, this is exactly what it says, because that's not being a teacher, that's being a dictator. I'm telling you exactly what it is that they did for you. And it's that personal thing of growing. And that's what I hope when I help somebody, is that they grow into this and begin to understand it in just their own way of connecting, because that's what it's about for me, helping others.
Maybe you can help me with this, Charlotte. I mean, because I talk to people about this all the time, and they keep asking me the question over and over and over again. What do the glyphs mean? I keep saying, I don't know. It's personal to me. I know what they mean for me if I can read them.
Yeah.
And you know, because I've proven it. I said the Y stick means man Sasquatch connected. The next day they started communicating with me with that meaning. And then, like I said, because of the documentation, I look back and 5 years before they were doing it. And so it's a personal telepathic, it's an agreement between you and them as to what they mean. So people
Yeah.
keep asking me, what do the glyphs mean? And I said, I can't tell you what they mean, because, and I don't care what they mean. There may be a across the board meaning. There may be some meaning that they have for themselves, but if they're working with you, it's only what they mean
Yeah.
between you and them, right?
Yeah, that's
And
true.
and
And you,
context is so very important in that respect too. Um, if you don't know the context of what's being spoken about, you have no possibility of understanding them. Um, you know, my favorite example of that is the word BOW. What does that mean? It can be a ribbon in the hair. It can be a bend at the waist, the front end of a ship, or something to launch an arrow with. And it's all the same. Unless you know what's being spoken about, you have no idea which form of that word you're using. The In the English language, the most commonly the word with the most meanings in the dictionary is set, S-E-T. And you start thinking about the number of different connotations that has. Same thing here. There are some symbols that are pretty universal. The X, for example, the Y, for example. But the rest of them, almost all of them, depend on what's being spoken about. And then add in their oral languages and energetic languages, and their possibilities of communication are so broad, it's almost scary.
yeah, and even the X has multiple meanings, you know, and there you
Yeah.
go back again to context, what's going on here.
Mhm.
That one instance is where, of course, I had a 50-50 rule where they and I share, you know, what I grow or what I gift or whatever. And my grandson had wanted to give them his Happy Meal apples. And so we put them out. The next morning we looked, and they had taken out half of the apples and closed it back up. But there was the X there. Well, that X, in everything that I've learned and understood through the years, for me, has meant friendship, family. It was even a thank you. It was just an acknowledgement of me or of them. So you go back to, like Tom said, context. And what I do when somebody comes to me about glyphs, that's what we talk about. What's been going on in your life, you know, what happened right before you saw this glyph. And, you know, think about all these things. And so they begin to think, and then sometimes they'll pick up, oh, well, that's what that is, or that's what that is. And so that helps them to begin everything that they need to know about Then of course there's, other kind of communication with them as well. But this seems to be something that's really a lot of people are experiencing now. And it's something tangible,
Isn't that strange? Because when we started working with this, Brian and I and Sue, and learning from you and from Randy, there was nobody who used the word glyph. It wasn't even heard of until we started our study back in 2012. And now it's almost universal. Leanne Carnegie in Ontario has she's in a physical situation. Her family's cabin is like 150 kilometers back from the nearest neighbor. They have a lease on Crown land, and it's the only one in the whole district on. They just don't have neighbors. They don't they don't get people there, and just beautiful stuff that shows up there in structures and glyphs. She emphasizes the structures more, I think, because more people are drawn to them. The glyphs, they don't understand the glyphs, but they don't understand the structures either. But they're more magnificent to them, I guess.
Well, they're bigger.
But she just said beautiful.
They're bigger, and that's something too. People look at something really, really big as being something, oh, wow, that's really important. That's huge. And of course, I've said many times, I always look for the little bitty things, the miniatures, like the big structure up there with Brian that we went to, that just gigantic, huge asterisk looking structure. The smallest one of them I've ever seen is less than 12 inches. And it was perfect, just like that. So, those things for me are more about energy and other things that are being moved around and things. So even seeing the small ones.
It's amazing how many pictures I have that we've taken of a big one and got looking at it. And here's a little one over in the corner. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yep.
That you wouldn't even, this is a prime example. Look over on the far left middle screen. Okay. Your eye is drawn to the center, but look over on the far left.
Oh, yeah.
That isn't there by accident.
Yeah. And I see that a lot. You've got the center part of your glyph, which is the one that you're going to notice, like this that Brian's put up. But, you can look around it and there are going to be other things too. Tell us about this glyph, Brian.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about it. This one is what Bud changed. I've got pictures of all the sequence, but I didn't get them together. But this is what he actually changed. I initially made another glyph, and I didn't include Bud in it for some reason. Then something told me go back and include Bud, and I did, and he changed it significantly. And then I happened again, and I included Bud, and this is what I put here for Bud. This is the open triangle. Well, it was touching, but that was the open triangle, and then the welcome family friendship X. And so, but how I had it was I had that the house here, and so this piece was here, and this piece was underneath so it made a house, right? A complete house. Okay. That was how I had it. So Bud changed it. Oh, and my intention was initially I said, here's Susan and I in the house. And then I thought, wait a minute, I'm gonna add Bud. So I put Bud in there because he's kind of connected with me now. So when I came back, he took the walls of the house away and he put his open triangle symbol, which is his signature, which signifies Bud, over the three of us. And so to me, that meant that he is connected to the three of us. The open triangle also means roof of protection. There's a dual meaning for it. Was my initial meaning. So he is connected to us. He is protecting us, and this is his symbol and his saying that we're connected and family and stuff. And so that was his last message.
That's cool.
And Brian, you said you were there when this happened, not looking at it.
Oh, right. Yeah, I went in there. I went in there and I was drumming and meditating and doing some stuff. And well, meditating is a stretch with me. Trying to anyway, but relaxing and playing my drum. And I had only been in there a couple hours. And when I went back out, it was changed. So, you know, and that's like, and this is what I'm talking about with Arla and I were talking about. Well, you know, you can say, well, a person did it, but no person is going to do that and leave exactly the message that I'm going to understand. You know what I mean? That talks to me, that speaks to me. That is, you know, direct communication.
Well, and besides the fact, it was a one way in only place you were at, and nobody had come. So
no, and I could see the access to where people would come in. Nobody came there, no. So yeah. Anyway, yeah.
There's another thing that shows on that shows up so much in the glyphs we found in your area there in BC. The elements of the glyph are all peeled. Okay. I see glyphs from everywhere else in the world, and they don't bother to peel the sticks. They'll still have the bark on them.
Yeah, generally, except one time at Lisa Faye's house, because the message was from RE. It was the third of it was when Lisa Faye got connected in with a Sasquatch. That story, right? And then the rock story was all involved in that too. But anyway, that time when the third one that we found at her place that said, we did this, we connected you in, it was us, was signed by RE, his A, and it was peeled and it stood out like, like, wow. Yeah, but generally, yes, you're right. They really do peel them up here and which I like because, you know, they really stand out that way, right?
Well, that was one of the things that told me it was from RE before knowing it was the fact that the sticks were peeled.
You mean the one at Lisa's place?
In Oregon, yeah.
Well, obviously, and plus the fact he had his signature on it.
Right. Yeah, but even before seeing the signature, you know, there's lots of places, especially if you're in Oregon, you'll find what is his signature in BC is not his signature in Oregon if it's not dealing with him. You know, in other words, you'll find the same glyph used for other things in different areas. So, yeah, that was, to me, was verification that it was him. And, you know, one of the first verifications, hey, pay attention to this, dummy. It's important. You know.
Yep. Hey, why don't you guys, now that we have you both on, why don't we talk about the healing story that you and Sue had in the tent and whatever, because then because you got both perspectives from it. So why don't you go ahead and tell us the open heart surgery. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what you heard and experienced, Sue?
Okay, yeah, that was at Camp Broken Arrow.
Go ahead, Sue. Tell us your experience, and then Tom can chip in with what.
Well, I just woke up early in the morning to this very, very loud electrical harmonic. Yeah. Who just did that? Was that you, Tom? Yeah. It was like very, very electric, high voltage sounding sound that was pulsing. Yeah, but it was, to me, from my perspective, I was on the other side of your tent. And what's that, an 11-man tent you have? Pretty big.
Something like that.
Pretty big.
Anything over 6 people, it better be containing adults. But yeah, it's a big tent.
So I was on one end and you were on the other, and my little air mattress was right up against the wall of the tent, and the sound and this energy and this feeling was coming from way above me, but right there above me. I wasn't hearing anything over on your end of the tent. And so, of course, you know, my heart started the pounding thing, but this went on for a couple hours, at least maybe 2 or 3 hours, every few seconds. You know, and it was, I knew it was a Sasquatch person there. I didn't know what what or why. So I remember asking, do you want something? I don't think I said it out loud, but I was really, really using my mind and my thoughts. Why are you doing this? You know, anything that could make sense of this sound and this energy to me. And eventually, you know, my heart like settled back down into my chest. And so I was just curious then. I wasn't frightened. I was just curious, but I was just trying to communicate. I wasn't getting any answer back, but it just kept pulsing. And every once in a while it would stop for more than a few seconds. And I'd hear a bird, a duck, I don't know, some kind of a quacking, goose honking noise. It sounded like birds, but then the pulsing noise would start up again. And so I just laid there wide awake because, of course, you know, you wonder what's going to happen next. What's this going to lead to? Which it really didn't lead to anything. I heard you, Tom, start stirring over on your cot. And why I didn't try and speak to you before 2 or 3 hours was up, I don't know. You know, it didn't occur to me to like make sure you're okay, like, or anything. It was all about just what are my thoughts on this. I feel kind of selfish for that in retrospect, but at the time I wasn't worrying about you, and I should have been, because you were not in very good shape the night before. You know, you were very weak, and I remember I kind of tucked you to bed and turned on the heater and was worrying about you. But yeah, for some reason that was not in my mind while this was happening. But anyway, I did hear you stir. I think that's when I said, Tom, do you hear that? And you said, yes, in the way that you do. Yeah. Kind of like you've been awake for a while too, you know? And I said,
I hadn't been awake for that long at that point.
Yeah.
Because I thought this had only been going on for 15 or 20 minutes.
Oh,
it was you who told me how long it had been going on.
On and
But,
on and on.
yeah,
I really thought it
my
was
heart,
going to leak.
my heart is in atrial fibrillation.
Yeah.
Has been since 2002. Okay, and this 2015 or 16, this happened. 2015. Yeah, I think 2015. And it was not running well at all then. We had made the trip over to Western Oregon, and even Jim DeMaine and Jeff Rohn both were saying that you know, they didn't expect me. They told one another they did not expect me to be in camp the next day. That I thought headed to the hospital, and so did I. It was that bad. And then that started. And the difference between you were hearing, I was feeling it.
Yeah.
Because that was the first thing I asked, where's that noise coming from? It's right out of my chest.
Yeah. And did you not say that you felt there was somebody on your side of the tent too, right? Behind you? At the same time. So apparently there were at least two Sasquatch people, and maybe they were, between the two, they were sending, you know, healing, fixing.
One, I think, was just outside the tent. That's what I felt, was just outside of me on my end of the tent. You got up and looked out the door. Just looked around, but that was on the opposite side of the tent. The door was on the side towards the campfire, which was 30 feet away or so. And my tent, my corner of the tent, was on the other side, looking out over the canyon. And but the night before, we'd had tracks around the outside of the tent. We had footprints. So they had been there the night before. And in that area, we had nighthawks. And that's what's my first thought. That's what it was, because when they dive so fast that their wing tips of the leading edge of their wings actually break the sound barrier. And
we heard those the night before.
Right.
We had a nighthawk that was guarding her nest or something, and she was doing that noise, you know.
Yeah.
But this was not what this was not the sound I was hearing.
Different than that. That was what first came to mind. But then the nighthawks don't vibrate your chest, and they actually put my heart back not into sinus rhythm. It's never been able to get that. If it is, it just lasts for a few minutes and drops back into fibrillation again. But the next morning, when we finally got up, I looked, there's a burn mark right there, right over my heart, in my skin, where that had been entering. And I have pictures of that burn. I could, if I'd have known about this, I'd have sent them on ahead. But it's very evident where this was going
Didn't
on.
it start out pretty red like that day, right? And then it gradually kind of faded to be an indented triangle, right?
Right.
Kind of sunk in your skin. Yeah, it looked like kind of like he melted like a scar tissue, like melted scar tissue, and beautiful little triangle. There we are with the triangle again.
Yes.
The triangle, yeah.
That's been explained to me as a symbol of their Trinity, earth and water.
I think it's significant that it was on your chest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very significant. But when it finally quit just before daylight. I mean, it was actually starting to break day. It was just right at dawn when it stopped. And like I said, I thought it had gone on 20 or 30 minutes, and then you informed me, no, it's been going on most of the night. But then the mattress was so comfortable. When I went to sleep, I generally never woke up. It's my princess mattress, as you called it.
Yeah. The super ultra deluxe air mattress.
That's absolutely 16 inches deep.
So I just
I got up and I got up and got dressed and walked outside, and Jim DeMaine was by the fire. He's getting the fire started. One neat thing about having Jim in camp, you never had to worry about having a fire in the morning. He was always first up in the fire going. And he says, why were you and Sue walking through camp and talking in the middle of the night? And we weren't. I never got out of bed. Sue did get up and look out the door, but she never left the tent. Well, we could hear you. You walked right from your tent to the campfire and right to the middle of camp. And no, this must have been something else. You kind of let it go. Then Jeff Rohn came out of the tent. Why were you and Sue walking through camp in the middle of the night talking? Then Maggie came out. Then, well, there were 10 people in camp. Sue and I, Danielle that did not hear it, and Ernie Vargo did not hear it. He takes some medications and he was out like a light all night. And Danielle's tent was off the other side of the landing, and she didn't hear us talking either. So 6 people of the 8 other than us in camp heard us get up, walk through camp.
Can you guys hear me?
And the consensus was, well, we couldn't hear words. We could just hear the sound of you talking. And because Sue and I both have a distinctive voice, it's us talking when we're talking. So
I'm surprised they didn't hear us laughing through that camp all night. Talking,
that
really?
it was a strange one. But we found tracks, 2 sets of tracks that went from our tent directly to the campfire and right out the main road out of camp, right down. And there were 15 and 14-inch tracks. So
yeah, and each one of these people, especially Jeff, said he woke up, he listened, and he thought, what are they doing?
Yeah.
What are they walking around in the complete dark for, talking? Like we were very, he said, it was a discussion that sounded really serious, but it was definitely both of our voices. And then he thought, well, I guess I'll just ask him in the morning. Instead of in the morning, he thought, why didn't I go out of my tent and say, what are you doing out here? Yeah, Tom was so ill and physically unable to have done that the night before. But sometimes that's what happens when you wake up in the middle of some kind of experience. You just pleasantly go back to sleep and think, oh, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
Until in the morning.
That was one of the unique experiences of my life. What most people don't know is it happened again. What was it, a week later or 2 weeks later that we went up to northern Idaho?
Yeah, and I heard only a couple of those same pulses, but you said
right.
And then I fell back asleep.
It didn't last as long, and it just came and it went. And since then I've received them periodically.
Yeah. Huh.
And even till today, they still happen when my heart gets way out of rhythm like that.
Yeah.
They still come.
So,
I just know I feel really privileged and thankful that I was allowed in on that, because I could have just been knocked out like they can do so often with people that they don't want to have their fear or their curiosity.
Well, I think there was a reason why you were. I think there was very definitely a reason why you were. I talked to Jeff last year, year before, and I asked him some questions to clarify some things that happened when I wasn't awake. And he says, you can tell people, he says, I did not really expect you to even survive the night. He said, you were that bad. And I didn't think I was that bad, but it wasn't good, put it that way.
Tom, how long, I remember when Sue told me the story, and you told me the story, you felt really, really good the next day. How long did it last for? How long did you feel good for?
It's still ongoing. And that's been, 6 years now. So that was July of 2015, I'm pretty sure.
It was night and day. I helped you walk to the tent and get you settled in for the night. Then I went back to the campfire for a while and talked to everybody. But the next morning you were a whole different man. I don't even know if you used your walker to get back to the campfire, but
No, I didn't.
So weak the night before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You were just like
it was night and day.
Yeah.
Another there, Brian. You remember the glyph? We identified the glyph they used for me that we call the banner glyph.
Right. Yeah.
It was the day before this happened because we'd gone on that outing that day and when we got back to our camp, I sat down in my chair under the shelter there, looked down, and right between my feet there was my banner lip right between.
Identical. Yeah. Absolutely no coincidence. So
that was a great camp. That was one.
Well, Sue being there while this goes on, which none of us need validation. But when you tell a story like this, people are and especially about you and me, Tom, because I mean, we've been, I can't even remember all that we've been through the years. But if there's somebody else that witnesses this, that really doesn't have that effect or whatever. I mean, Sue just relates what she was experiencing. She didn't even think about you. There was a reason why she didn't think about you. I mean, they were in control of everything that was going on in that tent anyway.
That was kind of the point of saying that, is that that's not like me to not think about, well, is Tom okay? My heart's doing this. How's his weakened heart? It didn't even dawn on me.
You were getting the residuals. You were knowing something was going on in there, even though you didn't exactly know at that time what they were doing.
I didn't know
You
why.
knew.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah,
why.
and
The presence of somebody so big right outside my tent wall
yes,
making this noise that, or me perceiving that they're making this noise, because Tom heard it and felt it from
yeah,
himself. But
yeah.
yeah, that made me think maybe it was about me. Did they want me to come outside? You know, it was kind of selfish in a
Yeah.
way, but
I don't think it was selfish. I think you were trying to do what you thought you were
yeah.
supposed to do.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to do something that you felt, well, maybe I shouldn't do this. But the whole thing was you gained something from this as well as Tom. I know they've worked on Tom many times, and Red Stripe is like, I mean, he's like there, all you got to do to Red Stripe is say, hey, you know, something's going on, Tom, what's happening here? And, you know, he's right there with Tom. And for you to experience that and relate the story, and then for Tom to talk about what's going on, and then for the ones in camp to say, hey, you know, what's going on. Now, if Jeff hadn't heard your and Tom's voice, he would have been out for sure to see what was going on. But he heard you guys, what he thought was you guys in a communication. And so he wasn't overly worried about it. But if he had heard them, actually, I believe he would have probably come out of his tent. So the whole thing was orchestrated in the way that it needed to be, you know, for this to play out.
Yeah,
and
nobody heard that electrical noise. It was so loud that I was hearing, but they heard us in a conversation instead, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
So isn't that kind of neat?
Yeah.
And we didn't hear the voices.
No.
Of
course, that would have been interesting to hear.
You know, it's like you get into these situations and you're like, you know, you're in the situation, it's going on, and then later you go back and you go, whoa. You know, all these little nuances of that situation, you know, come back to you, and it just intensifies everything that you experience, because in the moment you're trying to figure out what the heck's going on.
Yeah, and I already knew that they did, you know, interesting things. I guess that's where I wasn't afraid for my life or anything, you know. I was just wondering, where is this going? Like, what's coming after this, you know? But there didn't tend to be anything after it. It was always just that pulsing electrical high voltage sound that I kept hearing.
And that's, I've got audio of that going on here with something.
This sounded though like it was many, I'm not going to say, several octaves of different notes at the same time, almost like when you hear like an elephant bugling. And it's not just one tone, it's like a few of them. Yeah, that was also incorporated into the electrical sound. It was really neat. It was a good experience.
That's interesting too, because in vibrational healing, there will be that change of notes and different things when you get into vibrational healing, which is pretty much what they did. It was, you know, was vibrationally that they did this. So, you know, it's another one of those things that we have to try to help people understand who these people are, you know, and not that they have to know exactly who they are or where they came from or anything else, but the love and the caring that they have to come in there, you know, and to do that for Tom and to allow you to be part of that experience, and then for the others to hear things going on, which wasn't really what was going on.
No, but it's still their experience of it too, and it's still a lot to think about, and I think I think everything pretty much the Sasquatch do leads us to think about ourselves, that what we're capable of also. Or like,
Yes.
you know, the sound, when I describe it as elephants, but kind of a high voltage sound at the same time. Well, and you saying vibrational healing, well, there's sound baths. I mean, there's all kinds of healing that we already do know about, but it's just, it's not accepted. You know, it's not accepted. And then I have this experience with this vibrational healing of happening, you know, right in front of me. And then like, that was a miraculous healing. You know, it was wonderful, so profound. And how is that little scar doing? Is it still there?
The
No.
red spot's totally gone.
Yeah, no indent or anything anymore. So that was how many years ago?
Check on the indent. No,
Because it
it's not
was
there.
deep enough, like you could put your thumb in it. You know, it
Yeah.
was pretty deep.
Yeah, it was burned in. It was
Mhm.
2013. It wasn't 2015. Yeah.
Arla, let me
Yeah,
ask you a
because-
question.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Let me ask Arla a question.
Oh,
Arla,
look, everybody's frozen.
what is it about, not for me, can you hear me, guys?
Your internet
Yep.
connection is unstable. They're talking about me.
Well, I thought they were talking, well, I think they're talking about more than your internet connection, but you know.
Well,
You
and
look good, Brian. I can hear you good.
Well,
Well, what,
Yeah,
well,
what,
all
nobody's
it was
frozen.
saying,
what is it from your opinion, Arla? Sorry, Beans, keep your question on hold there. What is in your
Okay.
opinion? Thank you, sir.
My
What is in your
my
opinion?
I
opinion.
don't mind keeping it on hold.
What is your opinion? Why do the Sasquatch people connect with people like Tom and myself and Sue and you? What are the common denominators of that connection?
Well,
I
there's
know.
one word that I've used a bunch, and that's respect. It's beginning a relationship with respecting them and respecting yourself. But when you open up to what our universe has, all it takes is a paradigm shift. Everybody can walk into this with just shifting their paradigm of belief just a little bit. Why do they do it with us and thousands of other people that we've talked to through the years? Is because we are open to that. We see that it's more than a learning about a physical being. It's a learning about ourselves. It's a learning about the heart. It's learning that we are all connected. Yet we are individuals, but we are all connected in so many ways. And vibrationally is where we begin to see a disconnect with people. You know, and that was one of the things Kashima said to me a long time ago: don't judge something as good or bad. Ask yourself, am I compatible with this? That can be a thought, can be an energy vibration, can be anything. If I am not compatible with that, I just take myself from it. I don't get all up in the air over what's going on or anything else. I just take myself from it. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't like that, and I don't like those people, and I don't want to have anything to do with them or whatever, that philosophy or whatever. It just says that I, as the spiritual being of energy, is not compatible with that energy. And we know everything is energy. And when you're around something energetically that you are not compatible with, it's really hard to stay in your space that you're supposed to be in. So when you open up to all that and the universe, they're very, very happy to come in and help us in any way that they can. Now, some people are going to be more predisposed to work with Sasquatch people. Some are not. Some are going to work with other, what I call primal beings, which means from the beginning. So everyone has that avenue. Ours, for a big part, has been the Sasquatch people. They're the ones that our energy resonated with, and that we were able to work with them and they were able to work with us. So open your heart, think from your heart, let your heart be what takes you to the learning, and they will continually work with you and help you in so many ways. You can't even be able, to say. It can be anything from stubbing your toe and helping you to, get on with that, or getting a message from it too, like Tom, you got a fine tuning of the heart.
Sometimes
That,
they ask you to do things for them. I get asked often, what do you think about Dogman? What do you think about orbs? What do you think about, ET? I don't know. I have no opinion, because I have not been dealt with those. But ask me what I think about Sasquatch, and I'll give you chapter and verse.
mhm.
Okay, this little deal right here. 2 years ago, my walker has a basket under the seat, and 2 years ago I was still on oxygen. I was on a CPAP machine at night and on oxygen in the daytime, and I used a portable tank. Just went with me wherever I went. When I went to bed, I put that portable tank in that basket under the seat of my walker and put my CPAP machine on. Okay. Also in that basket was my hairbrush. So when I went to, the last thing I did at night was to, put my tank away and brush my hair, put on my CPAP, turn on the oxygen generator for that, and go to bed. First thing I did when I got up in the morning was take the CPAP machine off, open the seat to my walker, brush my hair, put the tank on, and I'm ready for the day. Friday night, I did that routine. Saturday morning, I got up, opened the seat to my walker, and that's laying in there. Now, I am in a room in a nursing home. I mean, this is a skilled nursing facility I'm in. And here's a feather. There are 5 nesting pairs of bald eagles in all of Western Washington. I have a primary wing feather from one of those 5 pairs. And I was told, this is a symbol for you as our scribe. That's what it's for. It's a symbol of being a scribe.
Well, that's an amazing story. It kind of fits in with what I was saying when Arla was talking about having a witness. Is one of the things I've noticed is almost every little experience that I've had with Sasquatch, they always leave plenty of room for doubt. And it's up to me to stitch it together. I have to actually look at it, and they put you on the fence. And well, was it this or that? And then you have to really feel it out, make sure, oh, well, no, okay, it was them. So I'm just wondering if you want to talk about that, is that room for doubt business, because I think a lot of people are having outrageous woo experiences.
You can call it room for doubt. I call it room for growth.
Exactly, because you have to make that decision in your life to go, yes,
Yeah.
this is true. Yeah. So
and again, Arla was very influential in that decision, and that was the 25th of September, 2010. I was suffering cabin fever, and I was going to go spend some time in the woods. And a couple of days before I was getting ready to go, I'd been talking about it with her, and she said, "This road you're going on, is there a stack of wood on that road?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "I've not been on this road. I've been on the ridge top on either side, but I've never been up the bottom of this river because the road's been closed. It used to be part of Boise Cascade Tree Farm. They put their tree farm to bed, and they deeded this part of it to the tribe at the Umatilla Indian Reservation, Confederated Tribes to the Umatilla Indian Reservation. So it was Indian land. They had closed. They were rebuilding the road, making it passable. And Brian and Sue know how passable that road is. They've been there with me. And but she says, well, I see a stack alongside this road, and there's a large male Sasquatch with a red stripe on his chest looking across it at you. I said, well, this one I can solve. Okay. I'll drive up the road, and when I find that stack of wood, I'll just set up my gear there. I have it's a standing joke. My investigation methods consist of a folding chair, a nice chest with chicken hips, Diet Pepsi and boiled eggs, my Kindle, and that's it. Okay. So what I did is I drove up that road, saw that stack of wood, and I knew immediately what it was. I mean, it's just the picture was in my mind, and it matched it immediately, totally. A big white spot there. It was when they were building the road, they used that as a offload area for their machinery and such like that. And it was a big flat area there, so I just pulled in there. There's a little stump there. I use that as my altar. I always set up a little altar, and I have it's like an incense burner, only I burn scent lure in it. Blackberry's my favorite, and there's no real reason for it. It's just something I like to do. And hung my feathers there, and unfolded my chair, opened up my ice chest, grabbed a chicken hip and a boiled egg and a Diet Pepsi, sat down, opened up my Kindle, and proceeded to read. And it was probably 9 o'clock when I got there, maybe 8:30. And it was about 2:30 in the afternoon. First time I'd ever experienced in my life that I knew of at that time. Voice said, I can't come unless there are too many people, it would be too dangerous. And my eyes kind of opened and, are you talking to me? Yes, I wanted to spend time with you today, but I can't come out. Okay, would it be better? I mean, it was Saturday, but I was retired. I could have been there on a Tuesday. I'd live on 6 Saturdays and a Sunday a week. And I was rather frustrated that I decided to come on Saturday when I'd seen 4 other cars that day to come down that road. So, should I leave and come back another day? That would be okay. And I had a box of apples and a box of grapes I'd stopped and picked on the way out there for them. Do you want me to leave the fruit? And you ever been laughed at by a Sasquatch? It's rather disconcerting, especially one that size. And you just look at the river, and I looked at the river. This was September, 25th of September, and you could walk across that river on the salmon that were in there. As I understand your point, you just come bring it in the cold times. That's okay. I can do that. And so I loaded everything back in the car, had my right leg in the car. It was in the car, and I was just sitting down, and there's a whistle they do. I heard that. I just snapped to it. Okay. And standing there directly across the road, there's a big fir tree and a hawthorn tree right next to it that I named Nathaniel. I mean, what else do you name a hawthorn? And standing next to that tree, 9 foot 3 inches tall, red stripe across his chest from his left shoulder to just above his right hip. Okay. 3 lines tattooed across his nose, just black lines. A crescent moon and a star tattooed on his shoulder. And he says, I wanted you to see me before you left. I will be in contact with you. And this is not oral. This is just coming into my mind. And I'm kind of, you know, that's where this journey started. 35 years prior to that, or more. I don't know from how long is it, from 1958 to 2010. And yeah, 40, 50, 52 years. And then all of that experience, all that time up to then, I had all these disconnected facts. And then they all started coming together. I started learning, you know, prior to that time, I thought Grover Kranz was probably right. They were unidentified, ape that we had just something that had escaped extinction and we didn't know about, because this country that we're talking about is remote, and it's very possible to do. But then I started learning. Just couple of weeks later, we had the conversation that I alluded to earlier about we have no powers that you did not at one time have. You've just given up on them. You quit adapting to your environment and started adapting your environment to you. And we did. We moved indoors. Okay. We no longer had to communicate across the distances we communicated across the fire. And we could do that orally. This is where my journey really began, only 11 years ago. Okay. 2 years after that was the experience that Sue and I just related. Then 3 years after that in Georgia, I had another one. And I don't talk about it much. I did write about it in my last book. It was in Sasquatch Myth, the Mystery. I told that story. But from that one, believe it or not, I even have an implant right there. I have a metallic implant in my arm right there. That happened in 2016. That was the year Bob and I went back to Georgia for the gathering.
Are you saying the Sasquatch put the implant?
So I can't talk about that.
Okay.
It just happened. Okay. I'm not sure what happened there. I just know what went. I was able to tell the story, the sequence of the healings that went on, but still there's so much of it I can't talk about.
Well, you're talking about primarily things that have no question. There's no question about it. But what I'm talking about is like when Brian was talking about glyphs, is you don't really know what they are, and you have to feel it out for yourself. And I want to know if anybody else
you do
had that room for doubt.
And what I've always done, what I've always done with that is no, unless we see it done, or there's some things that happen that, put it in the 99.999% plus category. If I couldn't find enough evidence to make it better than 99% sure that they did it, I just didn't share them. Brian, at one time, I had over 25,000 photographs of glyphs that he and Sue and I had taken. Okay. Of the 25,000 photographs, I shared less than 100, probably less than 20, because I was sure I had found enough other evidence. We had found enough other evidence to indicate them as being the probable authors of those glyphs. Remember the big one that in just outside the campground, the asterisk with the foot path across it. that was tied in the center with the split
Oh, yeah.
maple width. You know, that's what I'm talking about. We found enough evidence there to know who made that. Matter of fact, that split maple width is right over there on on the shelf on my bookcase right now.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that remains of that, because they wanted us to destroy it so that people wouldn't find it. That's why we found it. So but if you remember the sword ferns that were around that.
Yeah.
And the track that right across the middle of it with 51-inch strides. That's pretty indicative that wasn't a human doing.
Yeah, Tom, I think though that 20 is a little low. I mean, I'm pretty sure about thousands and thousands and thousands of them myself, personally. But
Pardon me.
I said I think
20.
Well, I mean, you know, like I've probably taken maybe 20,000 or more pictures of them.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty confident about way more than 20. Put it that way.
Well, yeah. I'm talking about what I have, and that's what I feel sure about. I'm sure you have a lot more because you take a lot more and you're with them there.
Well,
And where I haven't been able
it's constant.
haven't been able to take it.
It's constant communication back and forth, so I recognize it, right?
Right.
But
Right.
So I wanted to ask from Arla's perspective, because I never heard Arla's side of the story. I've heard your red stripe story, but Arla, if you can talk about it, maybe you can't. But how did that? You told Tom he was supposed to meet Red Stripe, his teacher. How did that happen with you? What happened?
Tom and I were talking, and all of a sudden I saw this large male standing back behind where this area of wood had been piled up. And it was just like, Tom, I just saw this. And that's how it happens with me in a lot of things. It's kind of like remote viewing. You see something, and so you can relate to someone. But I used to do a lot of remote viewing. I haven't in quite a while, but I used to do a lot of it. But Tom needed to know that I was the messenger the universe used to give that message to Tom. And that is one of the things that I have agreed to do in this life. If I'm given a message, I have to give it. Right. It's not just given to me to see it, it's given to me to share it. And, that's what I did. And that's like with Raj, when I saw her and described her to Tom, I didn't tell, what she looked like, but I wrote it all down. And then you guys had gone and seen Raj, and I said, okay, what did she look like? And everything that I was told was exactly what I saw and what I've written down. And I still have that piece of paper somewhere where I wrote, because she was so distinctive in her looks.
Yeah.
And
blue eyes.
Yeah. It was just like, whoa, wait a minute. She really looks different. And, and so I wrote it all down and didn't really tell anybody. And then you guys saw her, and
you make an amazing point there about the universe wanting this message to be. Could it also have been the Red Stripe wanted that message to be given, or because that's kind of a big deal, because in some ways that's really at the point of unity conscious, the universe and the individual.
And it is. It's exactly that. When anyone gives a message, is given a message, be it however, whether it would be about like Red Stripe, or whether it would be totally something else, because everything is connected. In my belief, we are all one as far as energetically, we are all one. And that message did go to Tom. Yes, Red Stripe used me as the vehicle to give Tom the message. so that he would have that opportunity, and at this time, Tom was in that shifting paradigm mode. And so everything for him was shifting from, like what he said, an undiscovered primate into something else. And so it just so happened that, I have an agreement with the universe that if there's a message that needs to be given, be it whatever being it is or whatever, then I am to give that message. It's not my message. It's to give to somebody else. And that's how that happened. Tom and I were talking, and all of a sudden there's a red stripe, and so,
Yeah.
And
That's not-
that goes to my question about room for doubt. And in this situation, Red Stripe and the universe wanted it to be no room for doubt, no room for doubt. And that's why you came in and it was so specific. But that whole little play dynamics of room for doubt and no room for doubt and room for growth, meaning you have to step into, that was woo, and that was an amazing teaching.
It was an amazing step as well.
Yeah.
But that isn't the only one.
It definitely was.
Let me tell you just one little anecdote.
Hang on 1 second, Tom. Just give me a second. I want to say one quick thing. I had something interesting happen last night that I forgot completely about. I had a vision in my head of Bud's open triangle with the X, the classic open triangle with the X on it. It wasn't a dream. I just saw it in my mind's eye, like as clear as a bell.
Mhm.
That was like a first time, so that was kind of neat.
Mhm.
And that means that's Bud, friendship, welcome, family kind of thing from Bud. So I actually saw it in my head just yesterday.
What close family would you have than what you encompass right here on this screen? I mean,
What's that?
How much closer a family can you have?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Sorry for interrupting you, Tom. What were you going to say?
Back to my heart again. Arla and I were talking one day, and I wasn't feeling good, and so I begged off. And probably 2 hours later, it got bad enough. I mean, my chest was hurting. So I called 911. I'm on the gurney headed out of my apartment. My phone rings, and I told him, hang on just a second. And I just wanted to see who it was. So it was Arla's number, so I answered it. What's wrong with you, and who are those people in your room? She's in Oklahoma. I'm in Washington. Okay.
Yep.
That's the relationship. Okay.
Well,
I can give you a dozen instances here of remote viewing that she's done. I have no doubt. I've been there. I've done that. I've got the T-shirt. Okay.
Well, Michael, one of the things that I always tell people, I don't know how many times I've said this, and I've said it to Tom too in years past. Don't doubt yourself. Just let it be what it is. Because the biggest thing that happens with so many people when they first get in this is they do doubt. Well, maybe that's not that. Maybe I'm putting my thoughts into that as to what it is. And the thing is, too, the more you do this, the more you get immersed in it, the less the doubt becomes a problem. And I don't really have a problem with doubt as far as doubting what I'm given, because usually when I'm given something, it's just matter of fact, there it is. I didn't have time to think about it. I just know I'm supposed to give this. This is something I'm supposed to say. And sometimes through the years, and especially a long time ago, when I'd be given something, I would ask, are you sure I'm supposed to tell somebody that? So I know it's a progression of growing. and becoming more at ease with all of these things that you're given, and especially when you go from a non-woo to a woo. Now, I was woo when I was born, so it's never been an issue with me.
Well, we
But
were only the Pope and High Priestess of Wu.
oh, that's true. But I think we've been devoted, but that's okay too. So, but
Well,
yeah, I
for me, it
do.
took 2 years for them
Yeah.
to teach me about the all one and no space, and to
Yes.
teach me without any words.
Yeah. And
You know what I mean?
that's a,
And so I would be like having these experiences and hints,
yep.
and then I would have to like, well, what does that mean? And does this mean that?
Yes.
And so it took them 2 years to non-verbally. Uh, there wasn't really anything but just hints of feelings
Yeah. Yeah.
to
And,
really
yeah.
understand that they live in no space, and it's all about the all one.
Yeah. And and that the truth of so much is in the statement that we are space, there is space, and yet there is no space, and we are no space. And that really gets hard for some people.
That is a hard one. That's a hard one.
For some people to grasp. I totally understand what that is. And it's really pretty simplistic once you get it and understand what that's, saying. And that's something that they know readily. And that's like, now you see them, now you don't. Or were they there, or were they not there, or are they still there and we just can't see them? So are they taking a space, or is that no space? And so, yeah, you can take yourself down this road where you just stop and say, whoa, wait a minute, I've got too much information here. I have to stop and I have to sit with this and allow it to come without me projecting myself into that understanding.
And what falls out of no space is no time. Because if time is a measurement of to going from one space to another space, or from morning to evening, that's a movement in time. But if there's no space, there's no time. And this is where it gets really crazy, because you always hear stories of Sasquatch knew in advance that you were going to be there, or they left a rock on the side of the road after you or a peanut on the side of the road after you drove 12 or 15 hours, and then there's a peanut on the like, how they do that? They can only do that if they're not bound by time the way we are.
Yeah. And the way we understand time too is different for everybody, how they grasp what is time anyway. Is there time, or is there no time? Are we going down the road, or are we not going down the road? And like I said, you can get yourself into a space of doubt of everything until you stop and just sit with what you've been given, and with them bringing us information. And I don't know how many people I've talked to, lots and lots and lots, that say, I got all this information from them. I don't know what to do with it. Well, it's there, and you will know what to do with it when the time comes for you to know what to do with it. So sit with it. Don't beat yourself up and say, well, maybe I didn't hear it just like that, or maybe I'm just thinking this because it's what I want to think. Just let it be and sit with it.
Yeah. We have a totally different concept of time than they do. That's one thing that I constantly amuse Red Stripe over, is my commitment to time. And he keeps trying to tell me that it just isn't important. And I keep telling him, in my world it is.
I remember Sue and I talking about time really early on. Remember, Sue, we were talking about like they do something with time or whatever. And ever, they've been teaching me about time like heavy duty ever since. Like, like going in someplace and it takes like 15 minutes, and going uphill, and then or going downhill, and then you come out going uphill, or no, going downhill 15 minutes, you come out. It takes like an hour going downhill. I mean, just like weird stuff like that doesn't make any sense. Or like going uphill looks like you're going downhill kind of thing, and just yeah. And I agree with what Bean says too. I like what you said about how they teach you, like it's a slow progression. You don't sometimes, a lot of it I think with me is like thought placement, and it leads you to little breadcrumbs, and then you come to an understanding or whatever. But also sometimes it's like an immediate thing too. Like with that love zap, that was just an immediate, like bang on knowing, right? Like, but I really appreciate what you said too, Beans, because that's exactly my experience with a lot of other things.
Yeah. Well, I hate to go, you guys, but I've got some stuff going and I've enjoyed it. Of course, you guys are family for sure. So we have a lot of history with each other. And I hope we have a lot of future stuff together too at some point. So I enjoyed it. Thank you guys for coming in. Thank you.
Thanks, Arla.
Hold on, I've got one more anecdote to share before you go.
Okay.
And it concerns time. Okay. There were two baseball players, Bill and Ted, and Bill and Ted absolutely loved baseball. In fact, so much they decided that the first one to die, when he got to heaven, was going to come back and tell the other one whether there was baseball in heaven, because if there wasn't, there was no sense in going, right? Well, Bill was the pitcher and Ted was the catcher. Well, happened that Ted got in an accident and was killed in the accident. About 4 days later, Bill hears, Bill, wake up. Is that you, Ted? He says, yeah, that's me. He says, is there baseball in heaven? He says, oh, he says, can you imagine? He's just playing with the lace of the babe. And Lou Gehrig is there, and Shoeless Joe Jackson. It's absolutely fantastic. He says, but I have some bad news for you too. He says, what's that? He says, you're pitching Tuesday.
Oh, God.
So there's time for you.
Yeah, on that.
Oh,
Bye.
There's a song about a young man lost in the streets of Ipswich. Saturday night, he comes out of the local pub. He's set upon by three skinheads down the ditch and stealing all of his money. And then the police and the ambulance arrive. So they're taking him away for repairs. He's singing this song. Kind of song you sing after you've just been robbed and stepped on. Somebody's done the rain dance all over your head. Well, I got in the mail late last night, a letter from a girl who found the time to write to her lonesome boy somewhere in the night. She sent me a railroad ticket to take me to her loving arms, and the big steel rail gonna carry me home to the one I love. Well, I've been out here many long days. I haven't found a place that I could call my home. Not a two-bit bed to lay my body on. I've been stood up, I've been shook down, I've been dragged into the sand. The big steel rail gonna carry me home to the one I love. Most every night, walking along the streets of this old town. Not a friend around to tell my troubles to. My good old car, she done broke down, 'cause I drove it into the ground. The big steel rail gonna carry me home to the one I love. Well, I look over yonder across the plain, the big giant wheels are pounding along the ground. Gonna get on board and I'll be homeward bound. Now I ain't had a home-cooked meal, and Lord, I need one now. The big steel rail gonna carry me home to the one I love. sand. Standing on the broad highway, would you give a ride to a lonesome boy who missed the train last night? I went in town for one last round and I gambled my ticket away. The big steel rail won't carry me home to the one I love.
Okay, so why don't you and Tom, why don't you and Sue relate? Remember the time when your car broke down or something, and Sue had to walk out like 20 miles?
Oh,
Oh, that's funny.
oh, I don't know if I want to.
There's a
And some of the stuff
wait.
on that. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, yeah, that happened at Three Bears. And you've been there, Brian. You were there with us.
Yeah, with that odd deer. Yeah, that
Yeah,
deer.
yeah.
Deer, yeah.
That
that deer that was giving you the stink eye the whole time.
yeah. She didn't care for him,
No.
did she?
I remember Brian's like, why does it keep looking at me? I turn my head and there it is looking at me.
No, it wasn't
To
like
tell that story.
I just didn't think that it was. I just didn't think that it was like it was acting weird because I wasn't feeling.
Well, it
well.
wasn't.
I'm in my tent,
was-
had my flap open, and it's standing right in front of the tent, like 20 yards away, like looking directly in at me. You know,
Mhm.
like for the whole time.
That's
So.
all paranoid.
You-
No, I wasn't
You've never
paranoid.
seen a voyeur deer before.
No, I wasn't
You
paranoid.
were
I
kind
just
of a
thought it
little
was different
paranoid.
behavior. No, I wasn't. I'm not scared of a deer, Sue.
No,
I was-
no, I just meant
I
you
was
were.
tangling with Barney the bear there just 2 weeks ago, like 5 or 6 feet away from him. So he's not gonna bother me. Anyway, go ahead.
Tom, that started out with you needing to do a presentation in where, Silverdale, or is that right? Somewhere around
No,
Salem.
that wasn't Silverdale. It was in Oregon.
Somewhere east of Salem, somewhere.
Yeah.
Where was it?
It was,
But-
not Estacada, the next run up from Estacada. It wasn't Estacada, was it? It may have been
I don't know.
Estacada.
You did a couple over there, but
Yeah.
so we
that's
decided
where-
we camp out the night before.
Yeah. So we spent a few nights up there, a couple of nights because
I think it was.
you had been camping down Little Cottonwood,
Mhm.
and then the activity died. I said, well,
Mhm.
and you asked me why. I said, well, it's June, and they've moved back up higher elevation. Is there a place we can camp that's higher elevation? Well, Cottonwood's 2,200 feet elevation, and Three Bears is 5,000 feet elevation. So we went up there, spent a couple of days, and then we met that deer. She stayed in our camp for the whole time we were there. Yearling doe, and the funny part of it is the second year when we came back, she was still a yearling doe.
Mhm. Yeah.
Really weird.
And we have pictures to prove it was the same deer.
Same deer, because she had a stripe on her side, that
Mhm.
an injury mark on her side, on her flank, and same deer. And that second year we brought Brian along with us just so she'd have somebody to play with.
Mhm.
But what happened? I was on my CPAP machine, and I had an inverter, and I'd plug the CPAP machine into the inverter and hook it up to the battery on the car. And first night was just fine. Got up the next morning and started the car. Thought I'd run it long enough to get the battery fully recharged. Well, I had hooked it up the second night, and it ran the battery down. We got packed, ready to go, and no battery. Oh, another thing that happened.
With like 6 hours to get to this presentation around the side of the mountain valley.
Yeah, we had to go over the pass into around Mount Hood and drop down into Malala. That's where it was, Malala.
Oh yeah.
And so We are 23 miles from the first house where we camped. Okay. And another thing that had happened there, from the time we arrived, we got out of the car and rap,
Mhm.
tree knock about every 20 minutes the rest of the time we were there.
Mhm.
All around, this one over here, next one over there,
Oh
then
yeah,
over there.
nonstop. And different sounds. Some sounded like aluminum baseball bats, you know.
Mhm.
Some were
Yeah.
thuds. Yeah, they're coming from
Yeah.
all directions right around us.
And this was the end of the road. Okay. It was wilderness area on 3 sides of us. The road went into the wilderness area and ended. So it was all 3 sides were wilderness area and where we were camped. So there was nobody else there. There's just the 2 of us. Well, I'll hike out and get us some help. Well, I didn't have any choice because I certainly couldn't hike out. And she takes off. Of course, I'll let you tell who accompanied you. But she did. She hiked.
Well, I don't know.
Hiked it.
Yeah.
What did we figure? 8 miles you walked before you finally ran into
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
kids in
Well,
the
I
Jeep.
think I was trotting and walking. I was running a little and walking a little. I got blisters on my toes. I know that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I was a little bit nervous about mountain lions in that area.
Mhm.
And I remember every once in a while, I'd be running and look behind me, kind of making sure I wasn't being stalked or whatever. And I got kind of sick of doing that. Actually, it was like, dang, this wouldn't be so bad if I just forget about mountain lions in my mind, right? And I just said out loud, please don't let there be any mountain lions, stalking me or watching me here. I just want to focus on straight line and get to somebody in a car. As soon as I said that, I said it out loud. I'd been thinking it for, the whole first couple miles, but when I said it out loud, rap, just right across the ditch into the tree, a big wood knock. And I was like, oh, thank you for being here. Thank you so much for accompanying me. And I just got down to business after that. Didn't worry about anything after that. Yeah, that was just so nice. I got an acknowledgement that somebody was escorting me, making sure I was safe. So I don't know if there was, some mountain lions that were nearby or whatever, but they let me know I was safe. So that was good.
Yeah.
Finally came upon a couple guys in a Jeep and flagged them down. This is all dirt road up this forestless roads and stuff. Asked them if they could come give you a jump, so they did.
No one that came around the corner, it looked like the cavalry.
Yeah, that was also the trip where we had our couple of camp chairs set out, and noticed that there was an X glyph, kind of just a few feet from us. I acknowledged that and got up. I got busy doing something back down. There was another one. I think this was the first day because we took your car, and we couldn't have done that if battery was dead. So noticed another one, and I said, "Wouldn't that be fun if we come back?" I think we just took your car to drive it and get the battery charged up.
Right.
And spent 20 minutes driving around. I said, wouldn't that be funny if there was another X between the two when we got back? And we got back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there is. There was another X right between the two. So yeah.
That was also the trip where the youngster running through camp tripped and fell.
Yeah, that was that night. I don't know if it was a full moon, but I just remember.
Bright night anyway.
Yeah, bright night. It's like just a mantle of light coming down from the moon and no light on or anything. They just jumped on the embankment and running across the tent and big
You
just
actually saw that?
We heard it.
no, that was
We heard it.
so light outside, and the mesh where the rainfly normally was on would have covered came pretty far on the tent. You would have thought we would have seen bodies, kids running, but no, there was no visual at all, but definitely loud footsteps, a lot of running, jumping, and then somebody
pick up the water jug, shake it.
Yeah, they were really active that night, but couldn't see them.
No.
No, you would have thought for sure their heads would have been higher than the tent level.
Yeah, we didn't have any visuals that
Mm-mm.
weekend, did we?
No. Mm-mm.
And,
They were, yeah, they just stayed
That's-
the whole time, kind of like that deer, stayed and
and that was the first
Carried
3 years that
around.
we went there.
uh-huh.
Next year we took Brian with us,
Yeah,
and
it was
then the third
it
year
was
we
quiet that year. I
yeah
remember it was quiet except the
then
year she was there again.
the third year we had Arla and Jonathan with us
Yeah, and it was fairly
as
quiet
well.
then too. Jonathan and I
It wasn't like the first year.
mm-mm. Jonathan and Arlen and I were hiking down one of the trails and we both stopped, heard a big holler out in the woods. Arla had just ditched the trail a little before used the restroom, used the needles. It was pretty quiet then too. And I think I was back a couple more times by myself and it was very quiet. But that was quite a jovial adventure with you that one time.
I just wanted to let you know that you'd found him.
Yeah, they were there. Well, maybe it took you to help bring them in. I'm not sure. Probably did.
It was just my favorite camping partner anyway. We had some great camps together, didn't we?
Yeah, a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And during those presentations, just not knowing where we're going to camp that night afterwards, it's to get back to where we both bought and just take off on the road and it's this house and blow over
we
have something happen.
We did that the second we went to Malala, didn't we? Just went up up in the mountains and found a wide spot. Great time.
Yeah.
And
I got good at setting up. That's for sure. Brian's always amazed. He's like, "How do you set those up so fast?" To mine, Tom. I always think myself. It's like I've had a lot of doing it.
That was an easy tent to set up too. It was. I've set it up by myself a time or two, and it's just nothing to set it up.
Yeah. No, it wasn't bad.
Then there's another one, Brian, that I want to think about. Remember our Blue Mountain rendezvous with Robin and Jim and.
Well, Robin, Jim, I got there a day later or something. Jim had already gone, and Jim and Ernie had gone. But Robin was there, and you and Sue and myself, and maybe one other person.
There was one other person. I can't remember who it was. Yeah.
Oh, we had so many incredible things happen at that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Me tiptoeing out to go use the little girls' room down the road a ways. And I'm squatted down, and I'm like, somebody better not come out of that tent. But you guys were both asleep when I left. And
I woke up as you were going out. I heard you going out.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
So I'm squatting there in the rain, and I hear psh at the tent. I'm like, gosh, is that peeing just right outside the tent there? And dawned on me, wait, they were asleep. Like nobody was there, and I didn't see anybody. I could see, and there was nobody. So, yeah.
Just a sense of humor.
It's like I didn't hear the zipper unzip either. For anybody to be coming out of the tent. So that was kind of a funny joke. And having been around horses my whole life, it sounded just like.
Yeah, it was no doubt what it was.
His legs out front, his back legs behind, and letting it all come out. It was quite a floodgate of happening. I always wonder, is that just an illusion? Like, is that just something placed in bed by them? It was not like them doing it. It's a silly.
Pardon me?
I've wondered, was that just a silly joke? Because on my mind then, I hope nobody comes out of the
I don't know how it is with women, but with men, the sound of it will trigger the need. Okay, and that's what them.
Yeah.
Because you had gone down and and he heard it and it triggered the need in him, and he was right outside my bed when did it on that uphill side there.
Yeah.
And it sounded like a horse.
Yeah.
And then it was that next morning when I got up, that's when I found the
Mhm.
glyph, the conference, called the conference glyph. It
Yeah.
was right outside the tent. Had been set there, what, 3 days, something like that, at that
Mhm.
time. And then here's a glyph set up overnight.
And Robin and I, the same night, but in different tents, we had that kind of scanning, buzzing feeling, waking up to feeling something, kind of like you see a Rox machine and that little thing moves, or when you're scanning some kind of scan,
Mhm.
that little bar that moves while like,
Mhm.
that's what it kind of feel like. And both had that happen, but I had not remembered until she said, I had this thing happen with my legs last night, went all the way up to my waist. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then with my memory, I did too. Wow, I wouldn't have remembered had she not, said that. But we both had that happen that night, from our feet all up, all our way up through our back down again, kind of like a Xerox machine. Didn't go past either one of our waist or anything. It just seemed to be our legs. But yeah, that was a true, real thing. And of course, your experience with the stick circle that you found, witnessing all that.
It wasn't at the time when
Yeah.
you were having, you were looking at the building and there were 4 or 5 of them talking to you.
Mhm.
Pardon me?
That was the time when you were walked away from us and you were looking up the slope and
Yeah, I was called to conference. The glyph there was left there telling me that they wanted me in conference.
Right.
And I didn't know where or when, but I just got the feeling I should walk down towards the road, towards the end of the ridge. And there were 5 Sasquatch up on the ridge there, and there's 2 from BC, 2 from local, and 3 local. One of them was the daughter of Red Stripe, Taranika, my little redheaded friend.
Yeah, and we were there watching you, and I personally, I didn't hear anything you were saying, but your mouth was moving and you were staring right up at the ridge for minutes, at least.
Yeah,
10, 15 minutes maybe. And then you
yes.
turned and walked up to us and we asked you questions and you replied in a foreign language, and
Yeah.
it was me. It was me that said, can you say that one more time? And you repeated it again, and it was still in that foreign language. It sounded in like an indigenous North American language of some kind, but it was verbatim.
And see, and that's
what you said.
Something that's very, very interesting and needs a whole lot more work is their oral languages, because in communicating with them there, that was very definitely, I mean, how in the world do you communicate in a language you don't speak and don't understand?
Yeah, but we do. See, we're all it was, is, and can be.
Yeah.
And we're not all consciously tapped into it, but we all have the ability. So that's then you're.
They use that language with me. When I'm talking with Red Stripe, he does it almost exclusively mind speak. And then they have their own language when they're on Moorhead, Sierra Sounds language that they use when they're communicating back and forth.
Right. So why did they choose that, huh?
Yeah.
Well,
I had a Sasquatch talk to me 2 nights ago as I was just walking around my block. And that's the first time, since 20.
I read that.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. It spoke to me in Sasquatch language.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Wow.
and it was.
And did you interpret it with yourself?
Did I what?
Did you like transpose it or interpret what it meant?
I was those people in the comments under my post, they wanted to know, what it was. And I'll try to imitate it. It sounded like a little bit like a dog, like a really big dog. It went like, woo, it went grr, 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 no, woo. Yeah, I can't really do it. Woo, woo, rah, 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 something like that. That's what he said. It was, yeah, like that. Yeah. But it started off with a like a girl, like a dog, but then it went into those other two or three words. And I think it was just basically, we're here
Hmm.
and we're near, that's,
That
yeah,
to start with is a greeting.
yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that's a general greeting.
Yeah, well, okay, so that's good. So that I learned something
Mhm.
today. Also, we have some questions.
Mhm.
Sandy Nelson asked, has any of you heard sonar sounds in the deep woods? And then later on, she
Submarine
says,
sounds, you mean?
the sonar sound was captured with a recorder in Cascade Mountains, lots of loud whacks,
Mhm.
then sonar sounds times two. Got two different sets of sonar. Very odd. So
Yeah, I have not
I-
heard a sonar sound, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Certainly, just means
sonar
I have
sound
heard
is
it.
like those submarines go ping,
Beep, beep.
ping. That's what
Yeah.
that's what I'm imagining what she's saying.
I've heard some crazy stuff. Like I've heard stuff like looks like there's something coming from underground, like almost like a pulse or something. We've heard that a lot, and we've heard like all kinds of supernatural stuff. But I don't think I've ever heard an actual sonar sound.
And then Tom's got a question from Stacy Johnson Emmons. She says, can he say what the implant is for?
No, I have no idea what it's for.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just there. It's
pretty much everybody who's got implants say the same thing.
mhm. Uh,
You feel it? You see it?
I can see it. I can see it and I can feel it. And I put a metal detector on it, and it's very definitely metal.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
Huh.
Yeah.
Can you walk around, or is it station? Is it set tight?
It's a little lump. It's like having a BB under your skin.
Oh, okay.
Hmm. And about the size of a BB.
Interesting. Any more questions, Beans?
No, that's it. I just Randy Bell was just had made a comment that I've seen it done. Glyph changes 2 feet in front where I sat. It magically changed, and no one could physically be seen, but a slight predator effect. That's kind of a nice comment. I think it was a little earlier in our
Oh, so he
conversation.
saw the shimmery glow, the shimmery, watery predator kind of thing moving away from it.
Yeah, and the glyph changed just 2 feet in front of him.
Interesting. Well, I've looked. Well, I mean, like dot placement or whatever. Like they did this on purpose. I'm looking at a glyph, and I suddenly something told me look over here, and I look back, and then it's changed right, like within seconds. But the predator thing is interesting. I've seen the predator thing, but not in conjunction with them changing a glyph. That's interesting. That's cool.
And
Randy.
then Neil Bauman said about the triangles. You're talking about the triangle on your chest there, Tom. He says, Neil Bauman says, the triangle is common in my contact with star beings. They left a perfect triangle on my son's hand the night I was taken off my porch. It was there for 2 weeks. So that's just,
Hmm.
Tom, you said the triangle is an important symbol to them. What's your understanding of the meaning of it, or do you know?
Yeah. It's a indicative of their trinity, and their trinity is earth, air, and water. Those are the things that sustain us. All of our life are sustained by those three things, and so yeah, you'll find a lot of triangles in their glyphs for that very reason.
Okay.
well, I learned something. That's interesting.
So, Tom, did you want to talk about? Do you remember when you met Fortunate? Do you want to talk about your meeting with Fortunate? I thought that was kind of. I know your favorite. I know. We talked about this before, and I know you probably said your second favorite Sasquatch encounter maybe ever was meeting Raj, right? Or right?
Yes, it was.
And
Yeah.
I'm getting the energy again. She appreciates that. I'm feeling.
Raj and the twins, and and yeah. But
you could talk a little bit about that too again, but talk about Fortunate for us.
Fortunate was kind of it was not that spectacular, but you and Sue had gone somewhere, and I was in camp, And it's just, for a little while, you guys are just, gone for a walk somewhere. And so I was just in camp, and where we were camped was it was a steep drop off at the edge of camp down to the creek. And there was a little road that came up out of the creek there. Just a cut road, is all it was. Nothing that you would want to drive on or anything. And he came up that and just introduce himself. Now, to let people know, maybe they already know, Fortunate is Raj's mate. And I wish Arla were still here, because we could tell that story too. She knew Fortunate in Oklahoma before he came to BC. When Raj say got to the age of wanting to take a mate, they have a meeting, a general area meeting of their hierarchy every year. I think it's twice a year, but it's at those who are wanting a mate, that's brought forth so-and-so is ready for a mate, who's available, who would, and when they decide this, then generally the female will travel to the male's area to meet, spend time, see if they're compatible. Because when they mate for life. They mate monogamously, and they mate for life. And it is so stringent a mating that if they're in their 30s or 40s, they've had children, and something happens to one or the other, they won't remate. They're very dedicated to their mates. And so Rajase was at the age to want to take a mate, and Fortuna was available. Fortuna lives, like I say, in Arla's area in Oklahoma. She knew his father, had seen his father several times, and had seen him once. But there's a story, you'll have to get her to tell it, because I wouldn't do it justice. But in camp at Honaby, and there were people on the deck of the cabin, and she'd gone for a walk in the woods, and Fortuna's father is like 15 feet tall. He's huge. And they could see where she was walking, and he was following her. And they could see him everybody on that deck was watching him, following her. And when she got back, did you know that you were being followed? She said, oh, yeah, of course, Arla. Little thing like a 15-foot Sasquatch following her is not going to bother her any. and so when he came up, and he was just a youngster at that time, okay, and like I say, maybe 20 years old, 21 years old, and she went down there. They met. They liked what they had together, and then, as is usual, they moved from his area back to her area to live. The only time they don't do that is if he's important enough in his home clan that he can't be spared for some reason or another, and that's rare. Okay, so they move back, and the reason they do it like this, their population is low, and in order to maintain good breeding genetics, they will go across North America to take a mate, keep the genetics pure, and that's what they did here. And then they moved back to BC, and have made their life there. Now they have 3 children. Another, you were telling me just recently of learning that Raja Say has had another baby in January. They birthed in January. The twins were born on the 15th of January, and and you mentioned that she had another baby. I said, oh, wait, it's too early for that. And then I realized that was 2015. So it's been 6 years, and yeah, that's right on time. 6 to 7 years is the separation between their children.
That lady was perfect. She hit it right on.
Yeah, it was just dead on. And this would be, they do that. That's how they maintain population control. Something we should do. Yeah, you spread your children out, you have less children naturally, so you maintain population control, and that's what they do. Because the last thing, if you're trying to remain a hidden civilization, is to overpopulate. Okay. Well, then he came directly face to face to me that day, just to introduce himself and let me know he was there, and who he was and why he was there.
Do you remember the exact words, or can you say?
Well, no, it's been too long to remember exact words. I have trouble remembering what I had for breakfast.
Was that in BC when Brian
Yeah.
and I were there with you?
Yeah.
Oh, because I heard him walk past, and I'm like, Brian, get your hearing aids in. Remember, we were all three sharing the tent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was walking around that tent area.
Yeah, he couldn't find his hearing aids, but yeah, I heard his footsteps come up and then go out the back, the tent and into the woods, and then they came back the same way.
Yeah.
Exactly. Back around and back down the embankment again.
Yeah. But he's, I mean, if you had 5 Sasquatch in a row, other than height, he would be hard to pick out as being unusual. Raja say you pick her out of a crowd. I mean.
Well, now you and Arlo said that she's different looking. How is she different looking?
Number one, she has blue eyes, and she has her hair like she's been to a beauty shop. It looks like she's wearing a flat top.
Oh,
and
short.
yeah, and really for Sasquatch, quite attractive. And she's not as big as the others, which is unusual. Of course, look at who she's around with Arishna and Forsh. I mean, they're all 12 feet tall now. So yeah, she's a mere 7.5, a little shorty.
But she was like Patty, right? She's still a big lady.
She's big. She's no doubt she's a Sasquatch, but she's not as big as the others in the area there. But yes, that was a day to remember. But Force, he just told me what to look for, what they were doing, and he gave me some hints on handling this guy over here. what to stress in teaching and stuff like that, and how because they knew what they knew what they wanted him to do. Then it was just he was in training period.
I have a question about since you brought this topic up, is how many, does any of you have any good guesses about how many Sasquatch there are in the United States and
I can give you very, very good numbers for the state of Washington, and you can extrapolate from there. There are 20 to 22 clans in the state of Washington. There are 13 to 8 individuals per clan, which means there are around 300 individuals in the state of Washington. That's 72,000 square miles. Washington and Georgia are almost identical in size. Okay. And we have a lot more remote areas than Georgia does, but that doesn't seem to bother them in Georgia. Where we've seen them there is unreal.
I've seen maps of sightings, and maps of sightings.
Just remember this about sightings. It takes 2 things to have a sighting. You've got to have a sightee, the Sasquatch, and you've got to have a sighter, the individual. So where are you going to get your sightings? You're going to get them in the populated areas because that's where people are. Okay.
So what I'm saying is you see there's like 10,000 sightings or something, and
yeah.
So
it's easy to
get
around.
One guy seeing 10,000. There's not one guy seeing 10,000.
No. And it's easy to get around in the state of Washington. Okay, it's been logging here for 150 years, and there's roads everywhere. Okay, and then there's trails into the backcountry everywhere. So yeah, there's a lot, and you have the social in this state. People are more readily acceptable of the concept of it. People aren't afraid to talk about it to their neighbor. Where I live, I'm the second youngest person here. Okay. And I'll be 78 next month. So that tells you the demographics of the population where I am, and they'll accept it. As a matter of fact,
how did you come to that figure? Did the Sasquatch kind of tell you about the clans and?
Yeah, that part of it came from him. The number of clans came from him. And
So you're saying there's only
and I've-
300 or so total Sasquatch in the state of Washington?
State of Washington. So I would make that somewhere in the 8 to 12,000 range for maybe 15,000 in all of North America.
How many would you say are in BC? Probably more than Washington, right?
Probably more than here, because you have so much more food available, and that's controller. Population density of people and food. And the area we investigated there, when you come to the end of the road there, it's 100 miles to the next paved road, leave the parking lot there. So and that's why you have all of that country, all of the food that's available there, because of the salmon, the grouse, the elk, just deer everywhere. So the food is in great supply. Another thing that you have coastlines that are totally unpopulated.
Mm-hmm.
No people on them whatsoever. And more protein grows per acre on tideland than any place else in the world.
Yeah, there's a lot of people cite them on the shorelines when they're
on the beaches.
Many
and that's why in the wintertime, that's the place to be. Because wintertime, minus tides, the lowest tides are all at night.
Yeah.
Okay. When they can be out there, total impunity. The beaches in the state of Washington, where you got houses and everything else, they can still be on the beach at night because it's terrible weather in December and January, and then nobody going to be out there in their right mind in the night. You got the minus tides, there's the clams, there's the sea cucumbers, there's the limpets, everything in the world grows in those tide pools that are just absolutely excellent eating. The crabs,
Did you ever hear the story? What the Sasquatch people did one time when we were putting on the Pork and Bean show? Did you hear?
No.
This? I'll let Sue talk about it and remember the chairs.
The what?
Or do you want me to talk? You want me to say what I remember and then you can add what you know?
Yeah, because I don't know what you're talking about. Are you sure I know?
Well, of course, you were the one who said it. You were listening. You were listening to the Pork and Bean show, right? And,
yeah, you'll have to say it because I can't remember, but I'm sure I will as soon as you start talking about it.
Well, of course you will. You were listening.
Is it bigger than the bread box?
Yeah.
No, it's smaller than a bread box.
She was listening to the Pork and Bean show, right? And she has like a folding like camp chair or something outside her door of her little place there. And for some reason it's raining, but it's like a mesh chair. So why in the heck would you decide, well, I'm going to go over and turn it over and get the rain off? I mean, what would make you do that? But anyway, I know what made her do it. But anyway, so off she went. She went outside, turned the chair over, got all the rain off, went inside the house, was listening to the show again. For some reason, 10 minutes later, she's outside again, maybe, I don't know, having a smoke or doing something. And as she looks at the chair, there's 2 pieces of pork placed on the chair. 2 pieces of pork placed on the chair that she had just turned over and got the rain off of. So,
yeah, that's true. That's true story. Yeah, it was pork. I was like, what the heck? Where did these come from? Yeah.
For a while there, we were getting all kinds of stories from people who were listening. Something would happen at their house or something would happen in the woods, but it has to do with watching the show.
Somebody had a can of pork and beans up here, like on their counter. Right? Wasn't that?
Yeah.
I can't remember her name.
Christina.
Yeah. No, not.
No, no, that's not it.
Christina Del Rosario?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's who it was.
What was that story?
She was at the Kelly Rainbow's Sasquatch family reunion, I think, right? Camping. She was
Yeah.
at the
Yeah,
reunion
she
thing
was
they
in
had.
she was in a motorhome.
Mhm. Right, and an old dirty can of pork and beans showed up on her counter. Right.
And she's a vegetarian, so it's
Yeah.
like she doesn't eat pork. But that was a good story too.
So she didn't accept the gift. She didn't eat it.
She thought it was funny, and she posted it on your
I remember
page, I
that.
think.
Well, I mean, obviously they're big fans of the show, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and these two pieces of pork were like they were like each piece was like that big, and it looked like pieces of pork chop, but it was raw. It was raw. But I know what raw meat looks like. It wasn't chicken. It wasn't beef. It was definitely pork.
So what are the odds? I mean, just think of the astronomical odds. I mean, we all know what was going on, but you just turn the chair over for no reason. And
Yeah, I know.
why would anyone do that? But anyway, and then you go up and there's pork on the chair.
Well,
And
I wouldn't, because my door opens up into a parking lot, basically, with nobody walks by. I'm on the end of a building. Yeah.
If that isn't as obvious a message as you can get, I don't know what is,
Mhm.
other than maybe something appearing right before your eyes. But anyway, yeah, that was funny.
Well, guys, I'm going to call it quits here, too. I think 2 hours is my limit for sitting here in one spot. Pants in my pants.
You want to hang in for a bit, Tom?
Sure. I'm in a recliner, so I have no problem with that whatsoever. All I have to do is just push the button and go back a little further.
Hello.
So what's the weather like there, Sue? Are we meeting today, or are we going to meet later?
Yeah, after the show's over, just get a hold of me. And right now the sun's coming through kind of like Tom's window. It was rainy and dismal, but I'm seeing sun behind the shades. So
Well,
get a hold of me
I
afterwards.
went camping with Mark the other day, and he has this super great little tent. It's like a packing tent.
Mhm.
And like we had a torrential downpour, as you know, when we were camping, right? He didn't get one drop of water in it. It only weighs about
Yeah.
5 pounds.
Yeah, there's good
Weighs about
ones.
5 pounds. So
Yeah, 5 pounds is good for backpacking.
yeah, so I'm thinking of maybe grabbing that. If I show up, maybe I'll have a new tent for us, because we're going to need a backpacking tent.
You're going to get the same exact kind, or are you going to research them a little bit?
No, the same exact kind. I mean, it was like pouring, like it was like a monsoon, and he didn't get one drop of rain in it.
Oh, awesome.
The rain cover fly covers the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. That's probably
fine.
why it was dry. Good rain fly.
Whatever. It's
Roof.
Yeah.
it's a good tent.
Anyway, bye-bye, fellas.
Bye, Susan.
Bye, Mrs. Bland.
Bye,
yeah.
Sue.
Tom, special
It's-
kiss for you. Mwah.
Oh, thank you, dear. I
been
miss
too
you so
long.
much.
You too.
Yeah,
All right. Thanks for the
I'm-
invite.
Mhm.
Thanks for coming. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, I'm going to go and make myself another cup of coffee. So why don't you entertain our guests there for a while?
Yeah, I
With
was just saying,
your
Tom,
intellect,
I would have guessed there was as much as 1 million Sasquatch and because they're all over Florida and Texas and Georgia and North
Yeah,
Carolina.
but 3 Sasquatch can look like a crowd. Okay.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm not doubting you. I'm just saying that there's
When you get
many
populations up,
because I'm sure the Sasquatch don't let the women and kids be seen. It's usually just a
oh no,
scout or the adult.
actually, it's usually the adolescents that you do see.
Yeah, but it's not like the whole clan. There's one or out fooling around or.
Well, what happens is the way they run their hierarchy is from the time the youth or the children are weaned, they come under the auspices of a senior adolescent male. He's in charge of the children, okay? And he may have 5, 6 children with him, depending on how many there are in the clan. So, and these are the ones that are normally seen. These are the ones that are throwing the rocks and making the noises and running through camp at night. And it's very seldom ever the adults. If we see an adult, it's because there's a message to be had there. Okay. Adults don't do that. That's youth doing that. Who gets in more trouble in any species in the world than adolescent males? Okay. It's just a normal thing. There are far, far fewer than I ever thought there were in actual existence. But if you want to remain unseen, you have to keep your numbers low. Okay. If you're overpopulated, you cannot remain hidden. Also, you can outrun your supplies, your living supplies very quickly. This is what happens with every hunter-gatherer society of humans there's ever been. What happens? You outrun your food supply and you have to move. Okay, by keeping the population low. There's one clan here that stretches from about Clay Ellum in eastern Washington west to Puget Sound. Okay, that's what, 122 miles? No, not quite that far. What is mile post? 85. So it's about 85 miles. Okay, east and west, and then north and south less, about 30 miles, probably north and south. That's one clan. Okay, Blue Mountains stretch from Walla Walla east to the Idaho border. Excuse me just a second. Sorry, nurse was here. I had to answer a question. Okay. The Blue Mountains, which stretch from Walla Walla east to the Idaho border, which is a distance of 100 miles, and then north from Interstate 84 in Oregon to the Snake River, it's about 100 miles square. There's 3 clans in that area. One of them's mostly in Oregon, but they cross back and forth, and then 2 on the Washington side. So they're far, far fewer than I ever thought there were, and it's the need for food that controls that. Okay.
Well, it's just because like we've had a couple people on the show, and this one guy is saying that in his area, I think he's talking about northwest Pennsylvania, that his mountain is about 40 miles long, and he says there's more than 50 Sasquatch on there, and he's seen them all. So
I would.
Well,
and when it comes to that, I'm from
really,
Missouri. I'd have to be shown. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not.
He says, and it's just one of those odd things, that he sees between 10 and 20 every night when he goes out there, and because they congregate together. So
you couldn't feed them. Pardon me.
I don't know what the whole story is.
Well, the thing is, Beans, is that who were the 2 that showed up in Washington from my planet? Was Roger saying? Who else? Tom? Called the gathering or conference.
I can't remember. There was a big red one. I can't remember his name. Great big red one.
Oh, Big Red, maybe. Did the guy be called Big Red?
He could be, because he was 12, 13 feet tall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was huge. Height would be hard for me to judge, since I was down here and they were 200 up the mountain.
Okay.
So I was looking up at the.
But my point is, it doesn't really matter who it was, I suppose. My point is that, they can be wherever they, just with their thought, with their consciousness,
they can travel.
So, this guy obviously has a great connection with them. 5 or 6, 10 individuals from other clans or areas could just come in and join.
They could be meeting there. Yes. Very, very, very simply.
Simply
could be a rendezvous point.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had this guy on, what was his name? Richard Raspberry.
Raspberry.
We had him on, and What's his name?
Rensbury. Richard
Rinsberry,
Rensbury.
right? And he was taken to the other side, right? He crossed over into the Sasquatch realm, in that invisible realm, and he was saying that there was just hundreds of Sasquatch in there, that a whole bunch of them just primarily live on the other side, and they only come over and visit once in a while. So there's a lot more.
That's quite possible. That's
There's a
not
lot more
anything
to this than
There's-
we're led to know. I
Right.
could believe that there would be 300 that were permanently land locked or living off the land, and
Mhm.
it was their job to take care of the land. But I'm not sure that that's. See, even if there was 12,000 in the United States, I don't even know if that's enough to give there's many sightings as has been reported. There's thousands of sightings every year. I could be wrong though, but it's a good question. It's a good mystery.
Well, you could say that for sure, and that is something that is totally possible. But look at the number of sightings Brian and I have had in our research area in BC, and if everybody else has a sighting, we're all seeing the same ones. There's only so many that live there. Okay.
Yeah, there's that too. I can see that, and also the Sasquatch have an agenda of wanting to be seen. That they have
certain
on
people
their terms and their choice and all that, but they want to introduce certain people, and they work, as far as I can tell, the Sasquatch are all working with the investigators and the researchers. They know who they are, and they feed them what they're ready for. And that's pretty clear to me.
But yeah, as far as
there's no researcher out there that
go ahead.
There's no researcher out there that doesn't have some Sasquatch attending to them, because they're representing the Sasquatch nation, so they keep track of them.
The thing what is about them, as you say, like what we talked about, no time and no space. Like distance is not a problem for them. So, whether if this guy sees 20 or whatever, I mean, it is possible because they could be coming in from different places. Yes. I mean, like when I've been traveling with Sue, whatever, when I was allowed to enter the States, when the border was open or whatever, Tom can attest to this. Just about every place that I went to or whatever, they would leave like glyphs outside of my car, right by the door. Or one time we were playing tennis, they left one right there. So they're with you everywhere, and they can go anywhere with you. And I feel it's my guys. So it's even though they know you.
Yes, they do. Red Stripe's been with me in Georgia. He's been with me in Oklahoma. Those stories are overwhelming sometimes when you stop and think about what they do. Yep. So yeah, they can, when there's need to, they'll be where they need to be.
Have you ever, have you ever had a rescue story? I mean, your open heart, well, that's like a rescue in a sense, but have you ever had they rescued you out of like a dangerous situation? I have one that was amazing and just
No, that's not something that's ever occurred with me.
Did you want to hear?
Not saying it couldn't, but yeah, I would like to hear that.
Beans doesn't. Oh, okay. Now he says. Now that you agreed, now he wants to hear it. Well,
one thing I before we change subject, before we leave this one, I would like to make one point. When just using the population of Washington, which I'm fairly certain of, okay, it explains very concisely why finding a body is so difficult. Okay, if you have 300 individuals that live in 72,000 square miles, they live on a nominal 100 years. That means every year you're going to lose 3. Okay. Now, if I have 3 bodies spread over 72,000 miles, what are my chances on happening onto one?
Finding a needle in a haystack.
Number 2, they bury their dead. Now, what are your
And
odds
possibly
of finding
some
one?
of them take their dead under the other side and bury them
Yeah,
there. That's another possibility.
yeah. So you can talk about the other side. You understand that. I don't. I have to make everything work on this side because it's the only one I know. I know another side exists, but I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
If you
Well,
understand what I mean.
we have another side too. We call it heaven, but I don't really think that that's exactly what it is. I think it's like a way station or a land
Well,
on the other side of life.
how Rinsbury described it, he said it was an actual world, like an actual physical
Yeah,
world.
natural world,
It's
a
just
little
another
bit better
world.
than ours.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah. Well, almost anything would be better than ours today.
Well, I know you guys got some pretty nice woods up there in the north.
We do, and we got. I'm not talking about the world or the country. I'm just talking about basically the people in it. I'm absolutely. The word escapes me, but I am totally devastated by what's been happening in the world the last 12, 10, 12, 14 years.
Absolutely.
And, politically speaking, it's unreal. Because we've come to the point that people don't trust government anymore, period. Either they don't trust government or they think government is the answer to every problem in their lives. And those are just as dangerous. And so I am very glad I'm on the end of the life that I am and not having to
Well,
go through what
think
you
Tom,
guys will
I
have
think
to go
Tom,
through yet.
I think Tom, these days everything is so black and white. There's no room for debate or opinions that don't conform to, there's no tolerance for anybody else's opinions these days, and I don't think that's an accident.
No, none at all.
No.
And I one of my mantras is you can disagree without being disagreeable. A prime example, myself and Dr. Jeff Meldrum, the last SASQUATCH summit we had in Ocean Shores. After as it was closing up, I went up and shook hands with Jeff. I said, we've done it again. We both made our presentations. We disagreed with one another 60% of what one another said, and we shake hands, go home friends.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is. He said, I know. He says, isn't it strange? He says, I sit there, as I'm listening to your talk, I'm disagreeing with what you say, but you're being so articulate and your points are so well made and so well backed. He says, I find my head going up and down. I tell him, Jeff, listen to your head.
Well,
that's what I say. You don't have to, you don't have to be disagreeable. You don't have to attack people. My opinion is, if they don't understand what we've been talking about, it's simply because they haven't had the experience yet.
Yeah. But you see, the key point with that is that you and Milgram parted ways with respect, and you didn't, and you didn't disrespect each other, right? I mean, which is, and with an open mind, both to both sides. Well, maybe, I mean, with your experience, it's hard to go back. It's more his mind opening up, maybe to your side.
Well, and that's true. He's, saying what I've already said. I have never listened to the man speak that I haven't learned something.
Right.
Okay. He's a very learned man, very, very intelligent individual. But that does not mean that when, get outside of his area of expertise, that he's going to know this. Look at all the silly shows on television that they run. They had one. It was one of the old Monster Quest shows. I just happened to pick it up on YouTube the other day. They've got this crew of people out there. Jeff was one of them. Dr. Esteban Sarmiento, John Mayanzinski was another that was there. And I have respect for Johnny. Not a single person there had any idea of what Sasquatch was. How are you going to do a study on what something is if you don't have somebody there that knows what they are, or has at least seen them? And this is what you're getting. Finding Bigfoot did one great thing for us. It made it okay to talk about the subject. I wish I had $1 for every conversation I've ever had that began with, I've never told anybody this, but. Okay, they'd had an experience, but they were afraid to talk about it. Now, because of that show being on for a few years, they're not as afraid to talk about it. Okay, they'll come forth, but they'll couch it in that statement. I've never told anybody. Okay? And those, I really listen to those because that's somebody that had an experience and doesn't know how to handle it, doesn't know how to classify it. And if I can be helpful, I'm very grateful. But you can't do justice to a situation with people who don't know, who have no experience. Okay. And I see it time and time and time again. And I see it with people who make statements on places like Facebook time and time and time again. 90% of them, I can tell whether they're telling the truth or not just by where they go with it.
Yeah.
Michael's background has a prime example of this. That's the picture of Enoch from Autumn Williams' book. And the fellow, the figures in that, now people blame Autumn for all of it. Well, no, Autumn just related what was being told to her by a fellow in Florida. Okay. Now, I don't know whether the guy was totally truthful or not, but I do know that he knew things that unless you've been with him, you wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very important point. He may have been full of crap as a Christmas goose, but he knew things, and that's important.
Yeah.
It's important to remember.
Yeah. You know, yeah. You know, one of the stories, I think the old classic story that probably, to me, even though we don't need proof at our stage, but for somebody who really wants to examine what was said and what was known about the Sasquatch people at the time and whatever, is the Albert Osterman story. Because the way he describes them,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting the energy again. The way he describes them as a people, and he describes their fingers. He describes them in such detail that is how we know them to be today. But at that time, nobody had a clue.
Yeah.
So anybody tells me that story is fabricated is completely out of their mind because it's too accurate.
He may not be totally accurate in his assumptions, because we always judge things in light of what we already know.
Right. I think that he assumed when he said he gave the old man snuff and he got away. Well, I think if they didn't want him to get away, he wouldn't have got away. I think his assumption there was wrong, but still, I mean, the way he described them and everything was just like perfect.
Probably the best description of this was our 2014 gathering in Elk Meadows, in California, and I wish Sue were still here for this one because she was part of that too. But milepost 14 on the Go Road out of Orleans, California, we were coming back to camp, came around a corner in the road, and there's two Sasquatch standing right in front of the car, right in the middle of the road. Actually, they were about 2/3 of the way across the road. I hit the brake, stopped. When I got fully stopped, I was about 20 feet from them, sitting in the car, looking up at them. Okay. The lady in the passenger side, Jackie, had come from Devon, England, to be there for that outing. Arla was in the back seat. She was my Rio. And of course, Jackie just, when she saw him, she just yelled, Bigfoot, on top of her voice. They turned, went back over the bank. Arla saw him go over the bank. And by the time we got from there, milepost 14, to our camp at milepost 34, Jackie had convinced herself in her mind that she had not seen two Sasquatch standing in the middle of the road. She had seen two Mexican drug mules wearing long-haired ghillie suits, flip-flops, and backpacks. Why? Because that's what her mind would accept. Her mind didn't know anything about Sasquatch, never seen them, but it knew what Mexican drug mules were. Their mind knew nothing about long-haired people, but it did know what a ghillie suit was. And it knew nothing about ostrich pads on the bottom of a bare foot, but it did know what flip-flops were.
Mm-hmm.
And it knew nothing about no neck and humped shoulders, but it knew what a backpack was.
Right.
Okay. So it substituted absolutely everything out of her mind and replaced it with things that she knew. It was probably 3 days later that Arla said to her, Jackie, you've traveled 6,000 miles to see what you've seen. And now your mind's not letting you understand it. And that got Jackie thinking. And by the time we got back, by the time I dumped her back, I dropped her back at the airport in Portland a few days later, she realized what her mind had done to her and was able to work around it. And today she's totally cool with it. She understands what she saw. But that's what your mind can do.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a cognitive dissonance and beliefs. Beliefs are not your ally. Beliefs is it's not an asset. It's a liability. I saw this program last night. It was like 5 people. It was a call-in show, and there's like 5 researchers, and they were talking about their research, and all these guys are respected and dedicated. But about 3/4 of the way through the show, they're almost all in tears out of frustration because they can't prove anything with the plaster cast. They can't prove anything with the recording. They can't, and it's like, I'm going, of course. Looking for proof is a fool's game. That's not what you're going to find. You're not going to find anything. They since the Patterson film, they've had plaster casts and video. You're not going to. They've hit their limit, and it's already been whatever it is, 25 or 30 years. They've already hit the limit of what you can do from stomping around the woods. The next level for research is this. You have to go to the people who are having experiences and ask them questions. How has your life changed? When was the first time? Have you learned anything? Has your worldview changed? And did you get PTSD, or did you get a low zap, or did you? When you gather this information of the experiencers, you're going to open up a whole world of, it's not proof, but it's data. And when you have enough data, then you can form patterns, and you can form assumptions, and you can form best guesses. And so to me, it's like the researchers are researching the wrong thing. They need to be researching the people who are friends with Sasquatch and have a spiritual connection to Sasquatch and have, heartfelt connection.
My point exactly.
Then you'll begin to know what's going on.
We cannot prove anything to anyone. All we can do is offer
evidence. You can't even prove that your dog is your dog.
No, you can't. All you can do is offer evidence. It's up to each individual to decide how much evidence constitutes proof in their own mind. That's why we have 12 jurors on a jury, because everybody has a different level of what's required for proof. And it takes all 12 of them to agree before the person can be convicted. That's why. You cannot convict on one anecdote. different levels of evidence. The empirical evidence is the highest and best form because it can be cross-examined, it can be copied, it can be duplicated, and then probably anecdotal would be next, and first person. But and hearsay, of course, is not even admissible. And my brother-in-law said, "Well, your brother-in-law's an idiot. So what's your point?" It's you've been there, you know him too. Yeah, that's the point. You're right. We need to work with the people who know, who've been there. How many conferences have I hosted, Brian? 4, 5? I don't remember now.
At
6,
least, yeah,
maybe.
something like that. Yeah.
And I have a caveat. In order to be on the stage, you have to have had a personal experience. Okay. It doesn't do a dang bit of good to put people on the stage who know nothing about what they're talking about, that everything they got came out of a book. Okay. If I want to know what makes up a track, yeah, I'll have Jeff Melver because he's great at teaching that. Okay. But if I want to know how to track the individual, I'm not going to have him. I'm going to have somebody that's been there and done that.
Yeah. By the way,
Okay.
talking on tracking, Tom, you know what's been happening with me lately? Have you heard of people who can track, who can feel the energy of the tracks and then follow them?
That's
Have you heard
really
of
high
that?
stuff, Brian.
Yeah.
That's really high stuff.
I was doing that about 3 weeks ago. I saw the energy of the track, and then I was actually saw the tracks, and I was following them, and I actually did that again the other day for a brief time. I could see that. So that's something that's developing.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's cool. Yeah. Nurture that.
They call that the silver ribbon. The Aborigines in Australia and the great trackers who were the American Indians, they would see a silver ribbon that would lead you to the animal.
Yeah, yesterday I could see the tracks going all the way up the hill. I could just, I felt the energy and I could see them. But getting back to your point, Tom,
isn't that amazing when that happens?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's only happened a couple times. It's just new for me, but it's developing. But yeah, it is. It's incredible. But getting back to like the show Finding Bigfoot and whatever. Well, these guys probably do more to introduce people to Sasquatch and whatever than anybody else, because like people will develop an interest in it, and then somebody who's got an open heart and is not closed-minded or whatever will develop that interest and then say, hey, there's more to this, right? So, I mean, like meeting you, for instance. I mean, I've always had kind of an open mind and heart or whatever, but then meeting you, and then Arla and all them, it just like opened big doors for me. But the point is as far as, but the thing is that these guys open a lot of doors for people, but the Sasquatch are not going to work with anybody who does not want to approach them with respect and with an open heart and that they connect to. And that starts with the woo, because that's where it all happens. It's all energy related. It's, like Gluffs, it's mind speak, it's connection. And that's if you don't have that relationship with them, they're not going to tell you much about themselves. So.
No, they have to have a willing and accepting receptacle.
Yeah.
In order to open up, you've got to be willing to. And I get this. The last book I wrote, Sasquatch Face to Face, is 32 face-to-face encounters with Sasquatch from across North America. Okay, and it amazes me how many of them talk about how petrified they were, how absolutely scared they were. They couldn't move. They were so scared. And all it was doing was standing there looking at them.
Yeah.
In a couple of cases, it hadn't even seen them.
Yeah.
But they were totally petrified. People ask me, don't you get scared? No, no, I have nothing to be afraid of. There, you know, if there were one who were mean, and I've never met him yet, kind of like I said, I'll be 78 years old next month. And if you think you have an aggressive, mean Sasquatch, call me. I'll come stand between you and him. I guarantee you. I can't tell you. I've known Sasquatch who were less than happy. Kathy Blunt and Christy and I down in on the South Fork of Clackamas River ran into that. The place was trashed. There were car batteries laying in the creeks. There were tires just thrown out in the woods. Okay. Why? It's the closest national forest to Portland. People could dump their garbage there and without the police being around. Okay. He was upset. He was angry. Okay. I said, before you get angry with us, look in the back of the truck. We've been picking that crap up all day long. I said, yeah, we don't have much room, so we only take the worst. Number one, car batteries in the creeks. But yeah, I understand that, you know, and he understood it at that point. And the conversation went on. Well, you know, this is not my, and again, we're talking about seeing groups. This is not the area where I live. We are here for the swimmers. The salmon were running in the river, and so they gather from all around to take fish. Very, very important concept. They don't establish a territory and protect it. That's a human thing. Okay, that's not their way. They cooperatively hunt. They cooperatively fish. Your area, prime example. How many are there in the summertime and how many are there in the wintertime? Okay, summertime, all the winter, they're up in the high country. Okay, but come wintertime, they're back down in the low country. They live together just fine. Okay, they do great. Then come spring, they're following the snow line up the hill again. They're probably about what 5,000-6,000 feet elevation now. Yeah. So yeah, great concepts.
Yep. Yep. So do you want to hear my rescue story? Or you want to just?
Yeah, I do.
You really want to hear it? Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so you know, I mean, they do. My point for this is that they do take care of you. If you're family with them, they will protect you. Like, just briefly, I'll just say one other quick thing. This was an amazing story in itself, but I won't get into that one. But in any event, I was camping and I was a little concerned about maybe bears because it was that time of year and whatever. And I was not that far off a trail. It would be easy access. And I was just thinking my concern. All of a sudden, I got this rush of energy and mind speak or thought placement. It felt more like a voice say, "We're here protecting you." Then I felt good, right? So they do definitely take care of their people, you know. And so, but my one story that was amazing is that, you know, like when Sue lived in Oregon, it would take me, I would work like a 12-hour shift. And then after that, I would drive like 8 or 9 hours, and sometimes through rush hour traffic, you know, like through Seattle or whatever. It was a long trip.
Yeah, you had Bellingham, Seattle, Everett, and Tacoma to go through.
Anyway, it took me almost 24 hours before I would get to sleep. So I was pretty beat by the time I got there. So the next day I was still a little beaten, whatever. And I guess I was a little cranky or something or whatever. So we're going hiking in this really remote area. And as soon as we got out of the car, I seen a few glyphs, and one I saw in particular was 2 sticks side by side, you know, which is one I recognize. And I say, "Oh, okay, they're here." So I said, "That's cool. Sasquatch are around." So I took note of that glyph, especially the one with the 2 sticks side by side. So we're hiking along, and then all of a sudden Sue gets ambitious, and she's heading way up this slope, climbing way up there. And you know, I'm a little bit hearing challenged. So I'm saying, "Sue, I'm not coming up there. I'm not going up there." And And she apparently was saying, hang on, I'm coming down to her, but I didn't hear her. So I just got frustrated and I said, ah, damn it, I'll just meet you back at the car or something, right? So I started heading back to the car. And of course, I got lost. My sense of direction is absolutely horrid, right? So, so I swear I was wandering around for 2 or 3 hours, up and down these mountain roads, going all around. And then at one point, I was getting really, really a little worried because I'm saying, you know, it's fall. It's going to get really, really cold here. I was getting to the point where I'm going to have to start gathering wood, have a little fire because there's nobody around, right? I think I'm not going to. I might have to stay here the whole night. So when I'm thinking that, I got to a little roundabout area, and and at that point, I got to a little roundabout area, and I said, guys, I'm lost. You really got to help me. Will you please help me? And so I got to this little roundabout area, like I said, and I took one final trail. I thought I'll go up this trail, and I'm headed up it. And all of a sudden, I see at my feet, I see those 2 sticks, the 2 sticks that I noticed when I came in. And I thought, oh, great, I'm back. I was all relieved. And so just before that, though, I was thinking, I don't recognize anything here. I was just about ready to turn back too, which is important. I don't recognize anything. I was ready to give up on this trail too. But then I saw those 2 sticks and I thought, okay, great. So I was encouraged to go on. And just as I was going on, I was coming up to where the road was just above me. And I saw Sue driving by really, really slowly. And I yelled, Sue, Sue, and whatever. So she stopped. And I said, when I got into the car, I said, oh, thank God I found my way back or whatever, you know, and whatever. She said, you found your way back. You're like 2 miles away from where we were parked. And so those 2 sticks that were side by side, you know, they were there so that I would continue to go on and meet Sue to make me think I was back. And Sue told me that when this was going on, she was being, I'm not going to say manipulated, but she had an instinct, just like, okay, now is the time to go. It was just the time to go, and she was driving by just slowly, just as I was coming up. So it was all like they connected us and rescued me because I asked, right? And you know, and because I recognized Cliff so much, and they knew I would pay attention, that's how they got my attention and made me think that I was back and continued on. So. So. Absolutely amazing. I wouldn't recommend that anybody is foolish out in the woods or whatever, but you know, I do feel protected when I'm out there.
I'm out. I'm losing it.
Okay, well, hey,
that was a great story. You got saved. It was amazing. This was like 2 miles away, so you would have to go back 2 miles. That would have been 4 miles, and she would have been gone, right? That's amazing.
They were controlling the whole thing. I mean, she didn't start moving until I was just there. And she was going by real slow. It was all like it was 100%, you know, they rescued me for sure. So, yeah, we should wrap up the show anyway, because it's getting to be that point. So hang on, Beans, while we wrap up. So did you want to say anything there, Tom?
Well, I want to thank you guys for having me on. This was cool to be with Arla and Sue and you guys. And, you know, people I respect most in the world. And this, it's unbelievable. It's been a fantastic journey, and it's so nice to be able to share. You know, I try to make this point and make sure people understand. When I relate something, I relate it from my viewpoint because that's the only viewpoint I have. Okay. Does that mean it's exactly true? No, it means it's my viewpoint. And that can be flawed because I might have a wrong view, but it's not because I'm saying anything I do not believe to be the total truth. It's just that's how I feel about it. It was nice to share with Sue that night and at Broken Arrow, because that still stands in my mind as one of the most fantastic nights of my life.
Yeah.
And what went on there and what happened is I still write about it. That still shows up in my books. And so and we're continuing as long as I am given air to breathe, I'll continue writing, and starting another book now. And if people would like to, they can visit my website at justmyname.com.
Tom?
www.tomcantrall.com.
Buy his books. You'll
Send-
learn
send-
something.
Yeah. Send me pictures in Facebook chat, just actual pictures of all your books. And Richard Rensbury was an author. We had him on last.
Oh, okay.
And I put all his books on there. So I'll put all your
Mhm.
books on the video I make, like the Facebook video. And so
Okay.
anyway, thanks Tom for coming on. I apologize, guys, for the bad internet or whatever. I've got to look into this. But I guess it's okay. Once we
There's
started,
no accounting.
it was workable, I suppose. Okay, so thanks, Tom.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye
So,
bye.
on behalf of Pork Cunningham and Frank Oliver Beans, it's the Pork and Beans Show, and thanks everybody for coming. Thanks, Mr. Beans, for being you. And see you guys.
Take away your chitlins, take away your greens, 'cause mama's little babies love pork and beans. Adios, amigo. Another job well done.
Adios.
Freedom, there's more to your life, so allow, oh Lord.
I'm entering the Stranger Sweepstakes. It's a contest. You pay 50 cents. You get a little card that has a number on it. Then you go up to any stranger. You scratch a penny on his head. If the number under there matches the number you have, you win $100. I won twice. I was beat up 11 times.